fly ball into right field. She is gone. In a year that has been so improbable, the impossible has happened. This one by Mattingly. Oh, hang on to the roof. Goodbye, home run. Mattingly. Time waits one. Deep left field. Down the line. That ball is out of here. Out of here. He's at the wall. And the legend.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Tablesetters covering all things Major League Baseball. As always, I'm Steve, joined by my tag team partner, Devin. What's going on, man?
What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 108, only our second live episode ever, trying to fill in a blank day. No baseball tonight after a very wild card series, if you will. We get it back going tomorrow night, but if you're here with us today, listening, thank you for coming on and participating, and we're gonna get you ready for tomorrow and the division series coming up.
Of course, going to preview all the series. We will recap the wild card round, but baseball's news cycle and really these series have moved so fast that we don't want to miss a beat. We want to get this to you guys before the division series kick off, and we have a great slate of games coming up, as Devin mentioned, on Saturday to keep you guys busy. But if you want to support our show, if you're listening for the first time over here, you can support us at Tablesetters Pod on IG. Maybe you're listening on X, but if you're not, at Tablesetters Pod, where you can find us as well. Devin posting some conversation. Of course, you can find us on Spotify, Apple, anywhere you find your podcast. If you leave a 5-star review, it goes a very long way in helping other people find what we're doing over here. We want all the baseball love to be united under this platform. If you guys want to have a conversation, doesn't matter your fandom, we cover all teams over here.
Yeah, for sure. And a couple other things just at the top of the show. If you're joining us here and you haven't subscribed to our YouTube, we have 50 subscribers on there. Not something we've pushed that much over the last year or so, but happy to have that many over there. But go find us on YouTube, subscribe. Some people enjoy watching us on there rather than listening through Apple or Spotify or wherever else you might listen to your podcasts. And Dugout Mugs, we're affiliated with them as well. If you're looking to get a little discount, you can use code TS10, Tablesetters 10, TS10. Simple to remember, get 10% off, and gives us a little kickback if you want to support the show in a different way and get yourself or maybe someone that you care about that likes baseball something. I know they're pushing the steel, like the metal mugs right now, and they have some kind of specials over there for that as well. So you can check us out in all different places and help us out a little bit if you please.
Goes a very long way, guys. We're going to hop into our opening say. I'm not the proud owner of the organ right now. We're using a different StreamYard, but we're going to start here, as Devin mentioned, with the 2025 wildcard round. And for me, Devin, it was a reminder of just how cruel and captivating October baseball really is. A best of three really offers no margin of error. We saw that kind of loom very large in all these series. One bad inning, a questionable strike call, as we saw last night, or a slumping star can undo really 6 months of very hard work. There's no time to regroup or reset. It was a sprint through these 3 games. Momentum seemed to be everything, and the teams that found it moved on. So we'll discuss those series, but that was my initial take on this, that 3 games felt like it was a fun format, but being in it, watching from a fan perspective, it is something that it's all about momentum, man.
Yeah, this was the most fun I think I've had as a fan in the new wild card format 3-game series. And I think partially because it's the most games or the most series we've ever seen gone to a game 3. 3 out of 4 get to the game 3. A lot of the games very close into the later innings, some lower scoring games, and quite a mix between, we did see some starting pitchers be the horses that I think everyone really wants to see, fans of the game, and the casuals. Like, that brings more casuals in if we can see a stud go 7, 8, maybe even 9 innings. So the Skubals and the Crochets of the world brought us that. The Cam Schlitlers, Max Fried to a lesser degree, but put a quality start out there as well. And then on the other side, we saw guys get pulled super, super early and lots of bullpen usage. So a mix, but I'm glad at least we saw some big-time starts there in the mix.
Yeah, and we will eulogize some of the seasons as we approach the offseason and look at different teams from different perspectives. Maybe we'll have some other centric podcast hosts talking about the Cincinnati Reds, San Diego Padres, to really dive deep into what we think they will have for the 2026 season. And you mentioned the usage of the pitching rotation, really the pitching staff at large. And there's a lot of ire towards Terry Francona and the Cincinnati Reds for how he utilized the pitching staff and the urgency and Nick Lodolo. And I know there's a lot of conversation around the New York and Boston series, but the Reds got a lot of heat for how Terry Francona, and there were some pundits out there, maybe it was reactionary from Cincinnati Reds fans because they just were eliminated in 2 games. Some people were saying Terry Francona, the game has passed him by, and I wouldn't go that far. But I think some of the choices we saw, Nick Lodolo as well, didn't really get to see Andrew Abbott. There was definitely a lot of interesting decisions where your season ended pretty quickly. As we mentioned, 3 games goes by pretty fast, and it never made it to game 3.
Yeah, there was a great tweet that I included on one of our Instagram posts. It's, baseball's such a weird game. You follow a team for 162 games. It feels like 5 seasons in one. And then all of a sudden your team loses 2 games and the season's over. And you're like, what just happened? But yeah, the Francona stuff's interesting because here's the thing. I'm a Mets fan. You're a Yankees fan. We follow those teams day in, day out, the most detail as possible. We're also hardcore baseball fans and we follow the league pretty closely. But it's something different when you follow your team. You just know all the ins and outs. And we can't sit here and say we're watching Cincinnati Reds pregame and postgame coverage and 9 innings of Cincinnati Reds baseball every day. That's not true. We follow them pretty closely, just as any other team. But what I'm surprised to see is there's a lot of Reds fans tweets I'm seeing that like they're frustrated with Francona for the whole year and some of the moves he's made over the years. I did not realize that before coming into the playoffs. I mean, I can't blame them for at least the playoff part. I can't really speak to what the frustrations may have been in the regular season. But when you throw a talent out there like Nick Lodolo and he gets 14 pitches, it just seems like a waste. And you bring Nick Martinez in. And listen, Nick Martinez is a guy on his best day. He can be a very good quality starter, but he's also a guy that can get hit around. The greatest thing about Nick Martinez, who I think surprisingly took the qualifying offer from the Reds this offseason, which was a surprise. He can be a starter or a bullpen guy. So you can use him in a lot of different ways. That's nice. He'll go into free agency. He's a guy to watch. It'll be interesting to see. $20 million coming off the books for the Reds. And I do want to talk a little bit about the Reds payroll and what they may or may not do in the offseason. But I will just say about the Francona thing, the Lodolo stuff, it stuck out like a sore thumb for sure. Andrew Abbott, there's lots of jokes going around Twitter the last couple of days of like, Andrew Abbott's fresh. He's ready to go. Like as if they're done. But to be honest with the Reds, like I think the series was what we expected for the most part. Like they had their moments. I mean, obviously getting a 2-0 lead early in game 2, you start feeling pretty hopeful because if you get to a game 3, who the hell knows, especially if you have Abbott ready to go. But the first game, I mean, the Dodgers wiped the floor with them. I will give the Reds credit because they could have just said, all right, forget about this one. Let's look towards tomorrow. They fought. They put up some runs. They beat up the bullpen, which if you're a Dodger fan, you got to feel really good about the way your team looks, except the bullpen still, I mean, it looks rough. A couple bright spots. Obviously, people are excited about Roki Sasaki, but like there's some guys in there that really struggled in this series, even though they had these gigantic leads. But yeah, I think if you're a Reds fan, as disappointing as it is to get there and then not even get a win and still not have a playoff win since I think it's 2009. You can correct me if I'm wrong there. That sucks. But I think most of us, whether you're Reds fans or just baseball fans, thought of as like, all right, this is probably a stepping stone for the Cincinnati Reds. And hopefully they can get back here having learned a lesson this postseason.
Yeah, that's the main thing I was looking at is from the perspective of Reds fans. The series, of course, they were coming in as a hefty underdog. So you knew that it would take a lot to break right. We discussed it in our preview episode. It was possible. There's always a path in baseball, especially a shortened series like that. You can find a way, especially with the strong arms, Hunter Green being who he is. It just didn't work out. But for me to look at it from a perspective of a Reds fan, it's hard for me to do because I'm not that. And you mentioned not watching the post and pre and living and dying with the team. The thing is, there was a 12-year playoff drought. And you mentioned not winning a game since 2000. I think it was 2009 was the win. 2013 was their last playoff berth. Regardless, Terry Francona, that is sort of the thing that overlaps with all these things. He goes into Boston, does what he does, wins the World Series there, and then goes to Cleveland, steadies the hand there, and now he's in Cincinnati, and you make the postseason the first time that he's there. And I think he plays a part of that. So I understand there's frustration. And I think a lot of the conversation around Cincinnati wasn't even so much it reared its head with the rotation, but a lot of the criticism that I was reading was coming from how he handled the at-bats from some of the players and subbing people out and platooning players and finding ways. But as far as their season for next year, obviously Ellie De La Cruz is the guy you're looking at. He's going to be the guy energize the fan base. He's a future superstar. If he's not already one, I think took a step back this year offensively, try to get it figured out. We saw the bright spots at the end of the year. Sal Stewart earned his at-bats. He learned his spot on that team. And Hunter Green, as I mentioned before, ace of the staff, paired with Andrew Abbott, Nick Lodolo, other arms that are coming up through AAA. Big question what they're going to be doing. Noelvi Marte, he definitely struggled against lefties this year. He turned into a liability in that way. Maybe you can take someone, the off-the-field stuff that happened with him as well. That plays a part. You have to find a way to be creative. And I know a lot of Reds fans want their front office to spend. I don't think we're going to see it. We will see guys come off the books. Austin Hayes, Zach Littell, Nick Martinez, by all reports, will not be back with the Cincinnati Reds for 2026. So they have to find a way to build on this instead of taking a step back and really just making this team better. And it's hard to look at this as a small market team. They have to find a way to have internal growth. And that's what I'm looking at for them.
Yeah, the internal growth is important, but there's this part of me, I was looking through their payroll and like what's on the books for next year. And there's this thought I have that makes me annoyed even before knowing if I'm right. The Kyle Schwarbers of the world, the Pete Alonsos of the world, those guys would certainly help the Cincinnati Reds lineup immensely, obviously. But I don't think there's any chance that the Reds are going to be in on those guys. And I think they should. Because here's the thing. If you look at their payroll, like they're not paying any of these dudes. They're in a fantastic spot. Teams would kill to have this rotation and paying this little for these guys. If you go down the list, Brady Singer made under $9 million this year. He still has another year of arbitration. Hunter Green, who they bought out years of arbitration, made about a little over $6 million this year. He's on the books for $8 million next year. And after that, it goes up to 15 and then 16 in 2028 before there's an option for $21 million in 2029. But to get Brady Singer for, let's say if he made $8 million this year, pitched pretty well, arbitration, I don't know what he gets, maybe 10, 12, something like that. Hunter Green at $8 million. Nick Lodolo, second year of arbitration, he made just under $2 million this year. Zach Littell, as you mentioned, unrestricted free agent, so probably off the books. I'd be surprised if they brought him back. Andrew Abbott is pre-arbitration. The dude made $770,000 this year as a National League All-Star. Rhett Lauder, who's going to the Arizona Fall League, which is pretty cool, couldn't get healthy this year. Dude is going to be a stud. I'm very hopeful for that. I think he's going to be really, really good. People have forgotten about him. Chase Burns making under $400,000 this year, pre-arbitration guy. Like, they're in a great spot for their rotation. They're paying a very good rotation, very little money. Obviously, you got to keep these guys healthy, but they're in a really, really good spot in that regard. Position players, it's pretty much just as good. The only guy that I looked at that's due to make over $10 million next year is Austin Hayes at $12 million. And he's unrestricted free agent after that, so who knows if they look to trade him. But, like, they can figure out how to get some oomph in this lineup, and they need it. Ellie De La Cruz, even if he continues to develop, if he's Batman, he needs a Robin. And maybe he's Robin and needs a Batman. I've said that a few times. I'm not sure if he really is that alpha that can carry a team or if he's more of a 1A. So I hope the Reds are aggressive, but I would not be holding my breath.
Yeah, and I think for the Reds, and again, longer conversation will happen during the offseason when we're looking at from the scope of looking forward to free agency, the winter meetings, etc. There's something about the Reds right now, whether it's the postseason drought or the development of players, they're lacking. And I think getting a player from the outside looking in and watching these teams play, I think a lot of us have a lot to think about as far as what the Reds do. So, but moving on here, in Chicago, the Cubs rode the magic of Wrigley Field. Their 3-1 win over San Diego was fueled by what we've seen all year. Timely hitting, got the airtight defense, and an electric atmosphere that rattled even the Padres' rebuilt roster. I think a lot of people had the Padres going to the NLCS, and the Cubs said, not today. And the scrappy lineup we saw from them, they're grinding at bats, and the pitching that really bends but doesn't break. And Wrigley was electric. They turned every close game into a pressure cooker. I love the atmosphere over there. It was the kind of win that really felt inevitable once the Cubs had a late lead. The Padres bullpen, that was their strength going forward. The most aggressive trade deadlines in recent memory from any teams. 5 deals, 22 players moved. We covered it in depth on our last live show, and a roster that was revamped in 24 hours. San Diego believed it had built a club for a deep run. The bullpen being what it is. We're going to have to eulogize their season, and maybe we'll have the Divine Sports Gospel on here when he's ready to talk about it. And I know that they did a live watch party, and the Bay Area, and shout out to what they're doing over there. And the great coverage of the San Diego Padres all year. So you feel for them. I felt a kinship with the San Diego Padres and looking to get their first ever World Series title under their belt. It wasn't to be this year. The bright spots are real for this team, though. Mason Miller looked like potentially he could be a future ace, obviously the closer right now, but maybe you decide to bring him in long form. Freddie Freeman emerges the number one catcher on their part, and Ramon Laureano should return healthy this year coming up. I know they'll have him under control, but without rotation depth, I think they'll need to figure out a way to figure this out. Dylan Cease, what's happening with him? Luis Ariz, what's happening with him? A lot of uncertainty around the San Diego Padres. And AJ Preller's out there pushing buttons. I saw there was a video of him walking around the outfield of Wrigley Field with the big banner or the screen grab of the Cubs clinching and going on to the division series. AJ Preller didn't rest, already trying to wheel and deal. But I wasn't shocked to see the Padres lose because both these teams are pretty evenly matched. But the Cubs really didn't sweat this one out at all.
No, I mean, and you mentioned Freddie Freeman there, who I don't know about anybody else, but when he's up there in the ninth and he swings at the first pitch fastball, I mean, just kind of right middle fastball, and he looked like he crushed it. I thought he just tied the game, and obviously it falls short and ends up in PCA's glove. But yeah, the future here, I mean, here's the thing. The reason it stings extra is because it's easy for other people to dunk on you, mainly LA fans, that, you traded these great prospects away, namely DeVries, to make a super bullpen, and you're out in the wild card round. That stings. But the offense was what it was all year, super inconsistent, and at times, like, they just could not get runs across. They didn't smash the ball enough, not enough home runs really to kind of get them over the hump. You mentioned Dylan Cease. I would assume he's not back. I'd be very, very surprised if I'm wrong about that. Luis Ariz, Robert Suarez is also a free agent. Michael King, they have a mutual option, the rare mutual option, not player, not club, both. I'd be shocked if Michael King doesn't opt out. Now, you might be thinking like, wait, Michael King, like, it seems like he barely pitched this year. He's hurt for most of the year, didn't even get a playoff start, showed up in relief, looked good, by the way, in relief. But here's the thing, man. Everyone knows how scarce, reliable starting pitching is. He's due to make $15 million next year if he opts in. You're telling me he can't get more than that on the free agent market? Come on now. He's getting more than that on the free agent market. People get desperate. He's making at least $20 million, if not more, average, because everyone knows what he can be. So unless you're super scared off by the injury stuff from this year and you think it's something that's going to be a yearly problem, I think there will be plenty of people knocking on his door like, hey, we can beat that. Let's see what we can do for you. And maybe he ends up back in San Diego after opting out and they give him what he wants. That's very possible, especially if they're letting Cease go, which we're kind of making an assumption there. But I think a lot of people are on with us about that. Other than the offseason, which will be interesting with AJ Preller, like you said, at the helm. My question, and I've started to see this on Twitter now, is are they going to be able to win with the Tatis Machado leadership, or is this becoming a problem? We saw Machado get very, very nasty with a reporter yesterday. All he asked was basically like, how do you assess the season after this loss? And he was very snippy with him. He didn't like the question. I thought it was a pretty innocent, normal question, to be honest. Now I get it. You're angry after a loss. You're upset. It's not unreasonable to be upset, but like, just kind of like took it over the top a little bit. What do you think about those two there as the de facto leaders? Do you think they're World Series caliber, or do you think there might be an issue there with those guys as the face of the club?
I mean, it's easy to say there's an issue when they're not winning, but I think with the talent that Machado and Tatis have, I think you can build a World Series caliber roster with the two of them. Whether there's a leadership issue, I don't think it's Tatis and Machado's responsibility to do all the leading for the team. I think it falls on the shoulders of the manager, it falls on the other veterans on this team. But there's no excuse for Machado and Tatis with the talent they have, and they really shrunk in big moments. We saw that this year for Tatis and Machado, and they could carry an offense. So I don't think they are an issue. And again, it's easy to point fingers, and there's a lot of conversation about this around the New York area with the decision after Game 1 to take out Max Fried and Garrett Crochet. It's easy to look at with hindsight and be like, I would have done it differently. And there's also the criticism of if they made that decision and went wrong, there's also the criticism there. So it's easy to say that the Padres can't win a World Series with them because they haven't done it yet. But would it shock you to see the two of them at the end of their career? The only thing that's fighting against Manny Machado is the fact that he's aging. I think the talent is there. Fernando
Yeah.
Tatis, the off the field stuff has always loomed large. I think he has matured. He's been a little bit more of a soldier walking the line for the San Diego Padres. You don't hear the same stuff you had, and he's growing up. He's maturing. But offensively, these two are two of the more special players we've ever seen in our generation, and they just haven't been able to put it together.
Yeah, I got to say, and maybe this is probably the Met fan in me because this name is just circling around in my head and will be for a while until the offseason. Pete Alonso, when I think of the Padres and I think, all right, they need another bopper, as a Met fan, I don't want him leaving, but I'm trying to think of like who's the main competition going to be. I've heard the Yankees thrown out there, which makes me want to vomit. You hear the Marlins. I know it's him going home to Florida. I don't think there's any way he convinces himself to go from playing in front of Citi Field to going and playing in front of 10 Marlins fans in Miami. There's some other teams out there that are interesting, but the Padres seem like a clear possibility. Even though I haven't really heard it, maybe people don't think he wants to go West Coast, but I mean, who wouldn't want to go to San Diego to live there? Luis Arias, their first baseman, free agent, like no slug. I know he hits for great average and all that stuff, but like imagine putting Pete there with Tatis and Machado. Like I would at least think that AJ Preller has some interest. But that was just a thought. The other thing I wanted to say is that strike call. So that this has been a conversation all day too. So Bogarts gets up there, looked like he had a great eye and took a pitch, and it looked like it was a great take. He gets called on it. And there's been this discussion back and forth. K-Zone made it look really, really low. Baseball Savant had it as a strike. Apparently, Baseball Savant has gotten this wrong before. Other people have tried to plot it with the ABS thing and say that it was just low or anything like that. So the video of them like going after the umpires after the game was over, seemingly thinking the cameras were off, that was kind of surprising to see. You don't see that much at the professional level. But your thought on that strike call and ABS in the future eliminating that kind of stuff?
I mean, in the moment, we were all in the group chat and we're like, thank God ABS is coming next year. That certainly would be overturned. And then you mentioned, I saw the Baseball Savant say it was a strike. To me, it looked like a ball. Just like watching with an eye of the 1995 type of baseball fan, it was a ball, and it did change the inning because you would have the bases loaded. They did have their shot though. It's not like it was the final out of the game. The Padres have themselves to blame. They had guys in scoring position in the moment. They could have made that disappear. I don't blame them for being frustrated. They didn't do it in the moment. You got to give them credit there. They didn't upset the game and start going at the umpires. They waited. But you just show how much passion is within this game, that these guys are going at it at such a high level. You don't want to call like that changing the momentum. That's what it did. So next year we will have the challenge system, and that inevitably, whether Baseball Savant believes it was a strike or not, we will have the debate live and in person and be able to have it right there. You just hate to see that because the inning was tilting in the Padres' direction, and it's the fallacy of the predetermined outcome. We don't know if that would be what would have happened. It was destined for the Cubs to walk away with that 3-1 victory, but San Diego had plenty of opportunities to make some damage and score more than one run in a decision-making game for facing elimination. They have themselves to blame. You shouldn't wait to the top of the ninth to try to put some runs on the board, and you want to blame one strike call. Like, you guys had all day to figure this out.
Yeah, for sure. It comes down to more than just those last 3 outs. Tough to see. And I don't know if I've ever seen Xander Bogaerts react that way, so you know how rough it was. But listen, San Diego, all in all, is going to be a very interesting team to watch in the offseason. I don't think they have any thoughts of saying, all right, let's take it easy for a couple of years and try to rebuild. That's just not who they are, especially after the trades they made this deadline. They can't even do that, really. You can't trade DeVries away and then afterwards be like, you know what, we're going to try to rebuild the farm system. But you got some big departures. They're going to have some holes to fill, and they have a clear need on offense. But also, if Michael King and Cease are gone, they have a clear need in starting pitching. It's very difficult to do both of those things in one offseason. So a lot to watch in San Diego. I mean, if we go to Boston and the Yankees next, listen, Yanks, the talk today, talk of the town, Cam Schlittler deserved every bit of praise he is getting. An absolute bulldog, a performance that you as a Yankee fan will remember for the rest of your life. Like, you just don't get these types of performances in the postseason that often, especially when it's your first start in the playoffs. Just unbelievable in an elimination game and against another young, really good looking pitcher there, even though he didn't have quite the success. Connolly early, I thought, put himself on the map as well. I know it didn't end well for him, but he was impressive as well. Yanks made an adjustment. Red Sox never did. The high stuff, the high heat in the zone reminded me of a prime Jacob deGrom, just that uncomfortable spot. You're not going to touch 99, 100 here. You're just not. And they just couldn't get close to it all day. Two different fastballs, different shapes. It's a brutal, when he's on, it is a brutal at bat for the offense. But we'll talk more Yankees later as far as their matchup coming up. On the Boston side of things, here's what I have to say. I think it's pretty clear. You and I said this a few times during the series. When the Red Sox lineup would come up before the game, you're like, huh? Like, looks like a few guys a lot of people have never heard of. You got Eaton in there, and it just didn't look like a playoff lineup. Sure, you have Alex Bregman in there in the middle, Trevor Story, who played decently as well, got some big hits. But overall, you're just like, all right, these guys are going to have to kind of beat us as if the Guardians win games, right? Just put the ball in play. And what really turned on the Red Sox is their defense. Rafaela had a rough play. The offense said the outfield said they couldn't hear each other. The Yankee Stadium was so loud. Yeah. Props to the Yankees fans. I will say game 3, after some of those moments, is the loud. I haven't heard Yankee Stadium that loud and have that kind of aura, honestly, since 2009. I just have not seen that. I feel like they're a little haunted by some other things that have happened over the years in playoff losses, namely the Dodgers last year in that game 5. But they seem to get their groove back, and I think that's going to play a big part in Yankees home games. But for Boston going forward, I think the future is bright, man. I think the future is very bright. Listen, no Roman Anthony for the whole series, right? Unfortunately, he went out at a bad time. I know Marcelo Meyer, who some people think he's the best out of the big 3. We'll see. But you're going to get those guys back for full seasons. You got Crochet at the top, who was unbelievable in game 1. Just great performance. I think they're going to be fine. As far as needs over the offseason, I don't know. I wonder if they look to add one more pitcher. Obviously, they don't need a number 1, but like a number 2 type of guy. But overall, I think they'll mostly go around the edges and just try to add. And I do think out of the 5 AL East teams, I feel like their future is the brightest. So when I'm saying future, I'm not just saying next year, but I feel like the next 5 to 8 years, the Red Sox are set up to have the most success. That doesn't mean they will, because they could drop the ball in some different places. The Orioles could go shock us and get multiple pitchers this offseason to add to their offense. The Yankees are the Yankees, so they're going to be around no matter what. But if I'm looking at the 5 right now for the foreseeable future, the 5 teams in the AL East, I love how the Red Sox are set up. So tough loss, but I think they're headed in the right direction.
Yeah, completely agree with the Red Sox. Their future is bright. And the other thing is the rivalry is back between the Yankees and the Red Sox. Of course, it's been quite one-sided. Speaking objectively, as a Yankee fan, the Red Sox have spanked the Yankees in big moments for many years at this point. The first postseason win that they've gotten in the series since 2003. Hard to believe, but the Red Sox have owned them in big moments. So to see this, you kind of exercise the demon, and I felt like the Red Sox were there at every step of the way. This was a close series. It was the first time, as we mentioned last week, that we had a team that lost game 1, went on to win the series, and it was inevitable. This format has only been around since 2022, so not a long form of history, but still history nonetheless. Momentum. Yankees had home field advantage, so he took advantage of that. Losing game 1 against Garrett Crochet, I predicted it. Max Fried had 6 scoreless innings in the wild card, setting the tone for the Yankees. Unfortunately, it wasn't able to do that. They put Aroldis Chapman on the ropes, bases loaded, couldn't score. All the criticism in the 24-hour news cycle around New York. If you guys live here in the local area, there was a lot of conversation ready to put Boone's head on a spike outside of Yankee Stadium because of the fact that he left Ben Rice out of the lineup. Jazz Chisholm was going through his closet behind the locker, and how 24 hours just changed things. And the crazy part is, Garrett Crochet, who shoved in game 1, an absolute dog, just a guy who they call him the war pig, and for good reason in Boston. This is a certified ace doing his thing, and he's a throwback. It still wasn't the best performance we saw in this series. Cam Schlittler was absolutely unbelievable. Yeah. He authored a historic start. We'll never have to buy a beer in the tri-state area ever again for Yankee fans. It's a guy who can go into Billy's right now and open up a tab, and no one will ever make him pay, because he's the man right now. And we will talk about Cam Schlittler and the history with Toronto, because there is something to talk about there with just recent history. Early September, a start against them. Does that loom large here? Do they have something on him? We will see. But as far as Boston for the offseason, there was around this team, Alex Cora was talking about them as this underdog little engine that could. And there was some people pushing back on that. You're the mighty Red Sox. You're not that. You mentioned before, looking at that lineup, they're ahead of schedule. I think we have to take that in stride for where they're at. This lineup is not fully realized. You got good stuff out of Trevor Story. Cedar Rafaela had a really hot start to the season. He tuckered out. He still gave you the best defensive metrics from a center fielder all year. And yes, he did make that error or whatever. They ruled it a single, but essentially he's the guy that misplayed that ball. He still is rock solid in center field. This lineup is going to add, and you mentioned the young talent coming up, the rotation itself to rely on Lucas Giolito. They're getting stuff from a guy that shouldn't be. He's reinvented himself. They're going to add to this team going forward.
Yeah. Well, Giolito, I believe, free agent as well.
Yeah.
So he's someone to watch. Rafaela, I think, is such a big X factor for this team going forward because we said this last time on the air previewing the series. Like Rafaela cooled off offensively so much in the second half. There was a time there in the first half you thought, man, this kid might not just be a defensive wizard. He actually might be a great offensive player. And like that would vault him into it like a top 20 player in the league if he could be great offensively too. And then he cooled way off. And you're asking yourself now, is this guy Juan Lagares or is he a great offensive player too? Is he somewhere in the middle? I don't know. And it's really hard to tell. Even if you look at the underlying analytics and you do use the eye test, it's really tough to make a decision of like, I think this kid is going to be a great offensive player too, or he's really just a really good glove. Wilyer Abreu, another guy, like started the season this year on fire. If you don't remember that, look at some of his numbers for the first month or two. Incredible, cooled way off. I mean, he looked like he was no match for Schlittler's fastball. Like, was out of all the guys against him, I felt like he was the furthest away from hitting the ball watching last night. But I think the biggest question mark for them in the offseason is Alex Bregman, who is very quickly and clearly the leader of this team. It took him about a week. And all of a sudden, Devers is like odd man out, and then later he's gone. And Bregman is the leader of this team, but he can opt out, and he's probably going to opt out. So that's something to watch. Is he back in a Red Sox uniform? If not, what toll does that take on this team? So I think you watch that for the Red Sox. So some questions, but again, I think with some of those youngsters, especially Roman Anthony and then Garrett Crochet at the top of the rotation, you got a pretty good back end of the bullpen with Chapman. I mean, no one's going to sit here and say Chapman's going to have the same year next year at this year, but even if it's a slight step back, that's still really good at the back end. Whitlock seemed to be good there if that's where they keep him. So I think a bright future, especially in some really important spots. Maybe Tristan Casas comes back and is that power bat that I think that lineup needs. We'll see. The last wild card series we want to spend a little time on just quickly. I see Brad in the chat saying he's a Boris guy, that being Bregman, which means, yeah, he's going to opt out. Good point. So if we go to the Guardians really quickly, Guardians, Tigers, I think it was exactly the kind of series we expected it to be. Low scoring for the most part, kind of trying to force runs across. Some good pitching. Obviously, Tarik Skubal, fantastic in game one. Gavin Williams, almost just as good. You get to game three, and I think this was the most predictable, hey, this is going three type of series. And the Tigers offense just finally comes through, finally strings some hits together at the right time, and the Guardians just couldn't do it. I mean, is that a surprise? That offense, I mean, we were saying this in the offseason. Like, who other than Jose Ramirez and Steven Kwan is going to provide offense? No Josh Naylor there anymore. They got some surprise performances from some guys, some big hits at big times down the stretch, and I think they just ran out of gas. I mean, even that game one win, I think they only hit like 3 or 4 balls out of the infield or something like that. As far as it's really tough to win consistently like that, even though they were incredible in the last month of the season. So for me, I know the Guardians are not big spenders here. They're usually trading guys away. But I do wonder what their plan is, because they should be pretty happy with what the pitching is. I'd be very happy with what Gavin Williams looks like, where he's going, like maybe true ace all-star coming around the corner. Love what I've seen from him. I think we've all been waiting for it. Guys like Joey Cantillo, I really like what I saw from him as well. I thought he was pulled a little early in that game in relief. So I think they're good there. Add a little offense, and you know they're probably going to do it around the edges, try to find a reclamation piece or something like that, which is not that sexy. But the other piece is Travis Bazzana, who absolute animal in college, maybe he can be that boost for them next year.
And chase the ladder. We saw him make his debut in the postseason as well. So I mentioned before, I talked about the Reds, I talked about the Guardians. I was pretty harsh on their offense. It's not a postseason caliber offense. We saw that. The Tigers, it was about them getting off the mat and using this as a blank slate to say what happened in the past happened in the past. We didn't just blow this division lead. We were able to withstand and get to the wild card, and that's what they did. And I think that makes them dangerous. We will talk about their matchup here against the Mariners and whether they think Tarik Skubal is enough to carry them across, but they need more offensively, more than we saw against Cleveland. You're not going to be able to get past the Mariners from what we saw from their offense over there. So they're a team that's ahead of schedule as well. They were okay with coasting to a non-playoff appearance. There was not a lot of emphasis on 2025 from the Cleveland Guardians as far as this season. You have a lot to pull from this. You get some experience as well for some of these young players that are out there. We mentioned chase the ladder, but all of these guys, they get a chance to look at the bright lights, and you played a 3-game set in a wild card round. That goes a very long way of building up the calluses for those pressure moments. And a guy like Jose Ramirez is a guy who carries you, but you need to give him a supporting cast going forward. I just want to give some love to Brad in the chat. Thanks for joining us, man. We appreciate it. And he says Bregman's looking for years. Hell yeah, he's looking for years. This is probably his final big contract, I would imagine. And Brad's asking if we already talked about the garbage umpire in the Padres game. Yes, we did. We discussed it. And Brett, I'll just have you go out and look at the Baseball Savant page that they had said that it was a strike. From the eye test, clearly not a strike, but those Padres.
ABS challenge system, baby, 2026.
All right, Devin, with that being said, let's move into our meat of the order and discuss all the things that have to do with the division series. So let's lead off with kind of what is, and maybe it's my subjective opinion here. I think the main event, the Yankees and the Blue Jays. Got the Yankees hat on. And I think it's fitting that the Yankees and the Blue Jays are finally meeting in October. Believe it or not, they've never had a postseason series against each other. These two teams have spent the past few years circling each other with some animosity. There's a lot of tension between both franchises. We got some memorable regular season showdowns. It felt like this postseason clash was inevitable, especially the way the season has gone. They finished with an identical record. Obviously, the Blue Jays had the tiebreaker playing. You got to give them all the credit. Both teams finishing an identical 94 and 68. Toronto took the season series 8-5 to secure home field advantage. So the Yankees are on their way, if they're not already there, enjoying some gravy and some fries over there in Toronto. But the Blue Jays themselves, you talk about some droughts. They have not won a playoff game since 2016. The Yankees, we mentioned before, chasing some redemption from last year. Rogers Center is a house of horrors for the Yankees as of late. Toronto went 6-1 at home in the matchup this year. That adds some drama as well. We'll talk about some more of the storylines, but goes with Aaron Judge, one of the greatest offensive series or seasons, I should say, in modern history. The compromised elbow loomed large here in this series. Maybe it looms large with the Blue Jays, who do run a lot. Maybe we'll see Judge be asked to make those throws that we haven't seen him be able to make. And the Blue Jays, we'll have to watch what happens with Bo Bichette. As of right now, he is sidelined, not being with the team. We heard from them that he will not travel the team if he's not able to play. We'll see how the deadline swing for Shane Bieber looms large here. He's going to get a shot to make a moment in a Blue Jays uniform. So there is a lot to discuss here. Cam Schlittler has become certainly a circled spot here for them as well, shaping the rotation. Trey Yesavage, who we discussed as well, will tip the balance as well. So a lot to discuss here, breaking it down. And what we did last week for the wild card round is we went from the different avenues. We went pitching, we went offense, talked about the X factor, and inevitably we made our pick in how many games. And this will be separate than the wild card round because it's a 5-game series. We move into a more extended format, believe it or not. Winning 3 of 5, it has to be an exhausting process compared to the wild card round. But Devin, let's start with pitching right now. We know that Aaron Boone's planting his flag with Luis Gil in game 1, but we're looking at this rotation shaping up. Who do you think has the advantage going forward?
All right, so I'm going Yanks by a hair, okay? And if I didn't see that Schlittler performance last night and watch every bit of it, I might say completely even. Maybe I'd even say Blue Jays by a hair. The Blue Jays have a very veteran pitching staff, been there, done that, mixed in with Trey Yesavage, which we talked during his debut, how kind of cool it is for Yesavage to be able to sit under that learning tree of guys like Max Scherzer, even though it's not the Max Scherzer of 5 years ago, 7 years ago, still has a wealth of knowledge. Shane Bieber there as well. Kevin Gausman, who throws the splitter like Yesavage does. Listen, I think what I saw from Max Fried, I know I scared you Yankee fans with some of his postseason statistics before game one. He looked great. He looks like he's in a groove right now. Ended the regular season very well. He looks to be in a groove. Carlos Rodon, I thought, looked good enough. And then you put Schlittler back here. I mean, it's looking pretty good in a shorter series here. Luis Heel, who knows what we're going to get here? Apparently, it's going to be Luis Heel game one, Max Fried game two. Luis Heel had one start against Toronto this year. It was a good one. I believe he went 6 innings, 1 run, 3 hits, only 1 strikeout, interestingly enough, but the opposing batter is about 150 off from that game. It's one game. It's a small sample size, but of course, it's something you like to see. The Blue Jays as a whole, everyone in that roster for their careers are only hitting 188 off of Luis Heel. A lot of that probably came last year during Heel's fantastic season. I do think the Yankees are a little deeper here, even though the Blue Jays have the more veteran staff. I just don't trust some of those guys as much as I do as the Yankees veterans, namely Max Fried, but probably Rodon as well. Gausman getting game one. I mean, there's some concerning stats here, namely Aaron Judge. Okay, I think he's going to pitch around Judge a lot in game one. I mean, he even alluded to it, talking about Judge. A lot of experience. Judge is 17 for 48. So hitting well over 300 with 6 home runs against Gausman. Okay. Another guy you could expect in the lineup, Paul Goldschmidt, even though usually he's reserved for against lefties, lefty crusher. The guy's 10 for 22 with a home run against Gausman. And Ben Rice, who I know Yankee fans love, 0 for 7. So you might see Goldie in there, and some Yankee fans, if they don't have that knowledge, might be like, what the hell is this? But don't be shocked. We'll see. Jazz Chisholm, also of note, 0 for 13 against Gausman. So a mixed result. Some guys a lot of success against him, and others not so much at all. To me, just to put some of this together, Yanks by a hair on the pitching side. I think Cody Bellinger is the Yankees' X factor if he's batting behind Aaron Judge like he did in the Boston series, because I think Aaron Judge is going to be put on base by the Blue Jays a lot.
Yeah, with Bellinger, we know he bruised his heel at coming across third base, so he seems like he's okay. He was limping pretty badly in the outfield. He was celebrating with his teammates. Aaron Boone said he'll be ready for game one. To go back to Luis Heel for a second, obviously rookie of the year last year, 98-mile-per-hour heat, swing and miss. He's sitting at a 3.32 ERA. But I went and looked at his expected ERA, which is a 4.78, which screams regression. And I think if you watch him, he walks that tightrope. He's walked 33 hitters in 57 innings, and in October, we know that free passes can really be death sentences, and the Blue Jays do run the bases pretty well. Boone isn't really picking the safest hand here. He's picking the guy who might throw 5 shutout innings with 7 strikeouts or be gone by the third with the bullpen scrambling. You can ask yourself the question. I know a lot of Yankee fans are looking at, will Warren be a safer bet here? Probably not. You look at the ERA, not to inspire, in 4.44. His one start in Toronto himself was a disaster, 7 runs in the first inning, which might be the reason that Boone's looking away from it. The Yankees are entering the series essentially giving Toronto the first crack of the momentum because of the way it broke. Obviously, with Fried and Schlittler, if you could line it up the way you want to with extended rest, you're going to want your guys to go out there. So this will be a very pivotal game one. They're always pivotal, right? Like game one is established the momentum. New York knows it as Max Fried lined up for Sunday. Fried looked pretty much untouchable in the wild card round against the Red Sox. If they can steal game one, they'll have the upper hand for the rest of the way. But if Heel does falter here and Gausman keeps the ball away and figures out to keep Judge and Stanton off the board, and suddenly Fried is pitching just to even the series, that could play a loom large. But we do have Brad in the chat again. He said, did the kid pitch against the Jays earlier the year? And it's funny you do say that. And I know you put the lineup here, 4 runs and a 1 2/3 innings, but I did bring that up. Cam Schlitter is literally the wild card here. His performance against Boston, we discussed before, not just impressive, historic stuff here. First pitcher in postseason history with 8+ scoreless, 12+ Ks, 0 walks, untouchable. Pretty much could have finished the game last night, for being honest. He looked like he wasn't getting tired. He looked like a guy morphing into an ace in real time. Some people are even putting the overlay of Garrett Cole in front of him, like we produced a clone of Garrett Cole. But here's the catch. You mentioned the Toronto start. The one start that rattled him this year, he's looked poised all year, was September 5th against the Toronto Blue Jays. He couldn't get out of the second inning, and 1 2/3 innings pitch, as Brad mentioned before, 4 runs, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts, and only 66 pitches. But I looked deeper into this. I watched the highlights, and it was not a meltdown. The Jays simply ground him down with a kind of pesky approach that we've always seen. They fouled a lot of balls off, heavy at bats here. It was death by 1,000 paper cuts for Cam Schlittler. So it wasn't dominance on their part. So I think that makes this game 4 start, if it does happen, of course. It's fascinating. Do the Jays grind the at-bats, neutralize his raw stuff? Did we see him just turn the key and unlock it to be this version of himself we're going to see going forward? Should we expect Cam Schlittler to be the guy we saw take down Boston, or was this the outlier? There's a lot of overwhelming conversations people want to have about anointing him the new king of New York. It was a huge moment. It'll be remembered forever, but now it's about building on it. There's another series to win. He's going to play a part of that. So I agree with you. I think the Yankees should win this series based alone on the fact they have 3 legitimate top arms. Fried, of course, we mentioned, Carlos Rodon, and maybe Schlittler compared to what he's done in the Boston series. I think Toronto's one sure thing is Gausman in game 1. So if they're going to be able to win this series, they have to get game 1. By choosing heel, I think you're giving them the opportunity. We will see. I think statistically the Yankees are the better bet here, but I think there's a little bit of a gamble putting heel in the spot here. But I don't think Boone had much of a choice. If you're looking at it and say, pick the red pill or the blue pill, Will Warren or Luis Heel, I feel like the more upside comes with a guy like Luis Heel. And if Will Warren has to come out of the bullpen, so be it.
That's what I was going to say. I'm guessing it's like 1A and 1B. Like, listen, it's going to be heel, and then when we feel like we need to take him out, it's Warren, or it was going to be the opposite way around. So you may have thought, like, who do I trust coming in out of the bullpen more? And the answer may have been Warren in that case. I mean, I do like Shane Bieber in game 2 for the Blue Jays. That's not a bad guy to have out there. And Bieber's also super motivated. He obviously could opt back in with the Blue Jays for $13 million. He's not going to do that. So, like, he's going to try to, on the big stage against the biggest stage type of team, the New York Yankees, he's going to try to show out. He's going to have plenty of motivation there. I think Toronto has to get the first 2 games at home to win this series. I think if they drop even 1 at home, they're going to struggle to win this series because I think Yankee Stadium is going to be absolutely electric. Now, I think Toronto, I think their crowd is going to be fantastic starting tomorrow. So I think both places, the crowds are going to be fantastic unless one team is able to take the other crowd out of it early in a game. But yeah, pitching, I think we pretty much agree. Offensively, this is tricky. If Bo Bichette was going to be there, I'd say it's even. Very different styles. Blue Jays all year, great team average at the top, on base percentage, just got guys on base, put the ball in play. Love the style of baseball these guys play. But the heartbeat kind of those statistics is Bo Bichette, high average, high on base guy, put the ball in play. So I don't know if it's been confirmed yet, but Vladdy had a quote the other day saying, like, hopefully we get him back for, if we can win this series. That makes it seem like he's out. So it'd be a big, big surprise if he's on that roster somehow. And even if he was, I wonder if he's more of a decoy than anything and wouldn't play much. So I do give this to the Yankees, especially coming off that game 3 win. I think this is the perfect series to explain momentum versus getting the bye and sitting. I think sometimes sitting and getting healthy and getting everybody in place is the advantage. I think other times, and this is the other time, if a team gets this dramatic, energizing win in a game 3 like the Yankees did and just rolls right into that, and you've kind of been sitting and you're missing one of your best players, I don't think that bodes well for Toronto. So I think the Yankees offense, honestly, I think it's just getting going. And if they kind of continue, it's going to be rough. Judge has shown power against the Blue Jays. He hasn't shown power yet in the postseason in a small sample size this year. So it feels like he's due. I do think they'll pitch around him, which is why I said it comes down to the guys behind him, like a Bellinger or a Stanton. What are they going to do if he gets put on base time and time again? So I do give this offensively to the Yankees as well.
Yeah, and I think for Toronto, you mentioned the Bo Bichette injury. It did happen in the same series we mentioned with Cam Schlittler with September 6th, that collision at home plate has derailed really their September offensively. He has been the guy that has been the apex and really the core of their offense. Before the injury to Bo Bichette, they were averaging 5 runs per game after just 4.3. So you can look at WAR, the advanced statistics, but Bo Bichette is worth a full run average across the end of the season, which means so much. Without him, their WRC plus dropped from 116 to 87. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has struggled. He has not homered since September 5th here, and he posted just a 596 OPS in the final 21 games, which is eerily similar to his 2023 struggles. So I think Blue Jay fans are hoping that it doesn't turn to that. George Springer, We know he's had a great renaissance of a season. He is red hot, 347 with 8 home runs. And his OPS is off the charts here in September, 166 WRC plus. He's ranked 3rd in MLB. So Dalton Varsho is delivered a career high as well in his 123 WRC plus, 20 home runs in just 71 games over the course of the season. He's coming off the offseason shoulder surgery. So it seems like that piece is going to be working here. And I think George Springer is going to play a part. He's going to challenge the defense. He's been similar to Bregman. It's like you're exercising some of the ghosts of the past of these Astros. You have to get through all these rounds of Bregman, now Springer. You have to find a way to outlast this. What else have we said about the Yankees offense? We really haven't said in all these episodes we've been covering the 2025 season. They are a prolific offense, 274 home runs, powered by Judge. We know the all-time season, potentially the MVP. That's a debate for another day. Maybe we'll have it in real time, previewing a Mariners and Yankees series. We know that Judge leads the way, but I think around him, we have to give some love to the other pieces here. Cody Bellinger has been so essential to them. He's provided balance for that lineup. Ben Rice broke out with 15 home runs in half a season. He hit his first postseason home run in his first postseason at bat. Big moment. Anthony Volpe put that turtleneck on in October, certainly turned into a different player. He has 24 home runs, 38 stolen bases. His defense has wavered, of course, in the regular season. He made all the plays against Boston. So I think that's a big piece of this as well. Jazz Chisholm is a big piece of this team as well. It gives them a different look. Lefty bat, his speed. This guy, he kept the series alive. He scored the run, scoring from first base.
Not to mention the diving play
defensively. Yeah, for sure.
Dude, that play, if you look back at obviously so many game 3 moments, but if you look at that diving play, just to keep the ball in the infields, much less like getting out, if you watch it, the second view they show of it, you see the ball hit the mound and it takes just the perfect little split to the right that gave Jazz the chance, but he still has to go full extension. It's just crazy. Baseball's a game of inches, and he did it. And that changed everything from that point on. The Red Sox very well could have won game 2 and swept the Yankees away, and it didn't happen much because of that. But I agree with you here on a few things you said. The George Springer stuff, I mean, he, to me, is the Blue Jays X factor. He's got to try to roll that regular season momentum into these games. You know he's motivated. You saw him, that lip reading of when they got a call against them late in the season when they were trying to get the division from the Yanks, and he mouthed, like, just give it to New York then. So there's that. There's the Buck Martinez thing from a few weeks ago when he said during a Blue Jays game that the Yankees are just not a good baseball team. Bulletin board material if you've ever seen it. And you know Aaron Boone is using that. Like, he absolutely is. And you know Aaron Judge not going to talk about it, but you know he's thinking about it with probably a wry smile on his face as he thinks about it and talks to his teammates about it. So the Yankees are going to be motivated here. I think they have found their mojo, and now it just comes down to production. I will say the one thing on the Blue Jays side that I'd look out for is, out of all the teams in the AL, I think as far as the teams that are left, I think the Blue Jays are the team that could expose the defensive flaws for the New York Yankees. They're going to put the ball in play. Like you've said a few times on here, they're going to run. And so the Yankees looked very good on defense, other than the Judge play where he kind of didn't get to a ball quick enough, and then his arm doesn't really allow to throw it hard. They took the extra base on him. Other than that, a lot of really good plays made, but I don't think the Red Sox were able to put all that much pressure on them, where I do think the Blue Jays are going to be able to do that, especially if Luis Gil's out there and not throwing strikes and putting guys on base. Will Warren, too, in game 1. We know Max Fried is going to find the strike zone in game 2, but that's something to watch for. I think game 1 is huge because the Yankees have so much momentum right now in my mind. If the Blue Jays can win that game and just kind of take that momentum away right away, that's absolutely huge. Blue Jays have to win game 1 if they're going to win this series in my mind. In my mind, my prediction is it doesn't happen. I think the Yankees win this one. The way they looked last night, the vibes, I think it's Yankees here.
So as far as my X factor goes, and I think we cannot ignore it, especially since Anthony Volpe's been playing better. I think a lot of the defensive conversations has disappeared, but it's not done. We know the Yankees have not been the best defensive team. They rank just 8th in fielding run value as well, 7th in the AL, I should say. But Toronto's defense is number 1, 44 FRV. They're elite. Kirk is outstanding framer behind the plate. Varsho is one of the best center fielders in the league. Jimenez is a Gold Glove caliber infielder. And even the role players like Ernie Clement out there bringing plus gloves, they do that very well. The Yankees defense being generous is average. So Volpe has been error prone at shortstop. That has been highly noted here. Grisham's reins has been stretched in center field. Judge's elbow injury has neutered his throwing arm. There's no way around it unless he proves otherwise. His elbow is a compromise here. You just have to deal with it because you want Stanton's bat in the lineup and you want Judge out there in his bat as well. Boston exploited that in the wild card. I think Toronto's contact-heavy approach could make that something as well. They're the second lowest K rate in all Major League Baseball. They're going to put the ball in play. You mentioned before, they're going to test New York's defense constantly. So the other X factor, we said it before, Trey Savage and Cam Schlittler are going to play a large part here. Cam is going to have to see if he can author a start that really mirrors what he did. Makes people wonder, how did scouts miss this guy? Because where he was ranked, he was the starting pitcher on opening day of the Double-A team. Like, how did he rise for all these levels without anyone catching? And he's added miles per hour on the fastball.
Yeah.
And if you look at what he was doing, I think average of 94 miles per hour just a few months ago. Here he is averaging. I mean, we saw him throw 100 miles per hour just with ease last night. So I think their fortunes could figure out with these 20-somethings to figure out how they look on the biggest stage. Trey Savage being the other part on the other side of things. And the bullpens are going to play a part. The Yankees added Bednar, Devin Williams, Camilo Duvall, all different parts. Devin Williams in the offseason, of course. But this unit posted a 4.74 ERA post August 1st. Bednar pitched in all 3 wildcard games. He threw 45 pitches. Toronto's pen, they were settled around Hoffman, Dominguez, Rodriguez, and Little. They were nails down the stretch. So in a 5-game series, I think that late inning stability could loom large and tilt in Toronto's direction. I think the Blue Jays have the upper hand on defense. They have it on the up hand in the bullpen as well, but frontline pitching is where the Yankees are going to thrive. I'm also picking the Yankees as well. This series is really tight. Division rivals, both teams finishing 94 and 68. Toronto won the tiebreaker 8-5 head-to-head. Rogers Center has been a nightmare for New York, 6-1 for the Jays at home. The Jays haven't won a postseason game, as I mentioned before, since 2016. The Yankees are chasing that redemption, though. Ultimately, October is about the stars showing up, the power. Brad's in here saying Judge Def shows up in the postseason. We'll see. We'll have to see it. The Yankees have Judge at the peak of his powers. I think Fried and Schlittler, if they realize who they are, they're a devastating 1-2 combo. And I think the Jays defense, Springer's resurgence is a big piece here. Gausman's splitter is going to keep them in the game here, but I think the Yankees are in 5. I think the depth's going to pitch them back to the ALCS. But every one of these games is going to be decided on a small margin, so it can shift in a different direction. You mentioned the Jazz play. That is the chess game that is postseason October baseball. Any little moment can shift in another direction. It's exactly the kind of baseball that this rivalry deserves. And don't get this mistaken. This is a rivalry between the Toronto Blue Jays and the New York Yankees. Just because it's not Boston and New York, Toronto and the Yankees do not like each other.
Yeah, I think this has the potential to be a very fun series. I don't think it's the main event, as you called it. I mean, Yankee fans, of course, are going to think it's the main event. Blue Jay fans as well. Dodgers Phillies is basically like the first.
It might as well
be
the National League Championship.
Like that's a crazy series to have in the DS. But I'll finish I have just 2 quick thoughts, and then we can move on to the next series. But I know the Toronto bullpen, you're right, was very, very good in September. Jeff Hoffman turned it around, but I trust Jeff Hoffman 0%. As far
as you can throw him?
Yes, as far as I can throw him, which is not very far. No, maybe not. I don't think I could pick him up, to be honest. So that's one thought. And the other is, I hope it goes 5 as a baseball fan. I would be a little concerned if I'm a Yankee fan, because if I do the math here, and tell me if I'm wrong, Luis Gil, Warren, game 1 combination, probably Max Fried, game 2, Rodon, game 3, Schlittler, game 4. So if you get to a game 5, or you're looking at Luis Gil and Warren again against probably Kevin Gausman again, and maybe a mix. I just feel like I like the Yankees pitching better overall, but the depth, I think, is maybe a little better for the Blue Jays in that regard. So I think 5-game series, maybe the advantage shifts a little bit to Toronto, plus it'd be a home game for them. But overall, I'm almost like trying to talk myself out of picking the Yankees, but I'm still going to go with the Yanks.
I would say, I mean, the fact that you have the off days built in here, Friday, October 10th would be game 5. I think Fried realistically could go if he's pitching Sunday. I think he could come back. You'd be pushing it, especially since, he's a big piece. But if you're facing elimination, I think all the bullets need to be loaded into the gun here for the Yankees. But Brad's in here asking about Judge's injury. It is to his right elbow. The flexor strain we saw in July has not really loomed large. He did sit on the 10-day injury list, but he came back. I mean, it's the damage to the flexor strain we are hearing. And like, obviously we thought that was the pivotal point of the Yankee season, because being that was right near the trade deadline, if he was doing significant time on the IL. The Yankees, we saw the report that Brett Beatty and Trent Grisham could have been swapped in an intercity trade here. So Judge being okay and like he's showing he can swing the bat. It's interesting there. So Brad's in here talking about Sox fan here. I rooted for two teams, the Red Sox and any team that faces the Yankees. So, I mean, you and Jarek Harabis was celebrating game one, singing New York, New York. That will be a meme forever, by the way. Like,
So
what do you
bad.
think?
What are you
that is
doing?
to me, game one, posting all the memes and stuff and doing the watch parties. You're asking to be clowned on all day, every day. Diehard baseball fan. I'm not celebrating any game. Even when the Yanks are up 4-0 going into the ninth, I'm like, this game's not over. People are talking about series matchups. Baseball is cruel and will pull your heart out as a Red Sox fan, as well as Brad in here. I don't do that. Yeah, because you're a smart baseball fan. You know how it works. You've been a Boston fan long enough to know that you start poking fun at the gods, dude. They're going to do something to get back at you.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's like amateur stuff. If you've watched enough baseball and you're a hardcore enough fan, you just know not to poke the bear. But anyway, all right, let's get to the next one here. We still got a lot to preview.
So let's get to the Brewers Cubs here. It always felt like it was coming down to this. For much of this last decade, the Brewers have been a bigger thorn in the Cubs side than really even the Cardinals have been. From the 2018 division tiebreaker game that Milwaukee won at Wrigley to this constant tug of war for the NL Central supremacy, this matchup has become the defining rivalry of the division. I think Cards fans are not going to like that, but I think now for the first time, this spills into October. Yes, it is the first time the Brewers and Cubs will do battle in an October series. The Brewers finished 2025 with the best record in baseball. Well-earned first round bye, 97-65, outpacing expectations by 17 wins, securing home field advantage throughout the playoffs. They're chasing their first trip to the World Series since 1982. Talk about the Cubs, written off as underachievers for much of this summer. Kyle Tucker being the scapegoat there. They clawed into a postseason, knocked out the Padres in that 3-game wildcard series. It was their first playoff series win since 2017. Chicago finished 92-70, so nothing to sneeze at, 5 games back from Milwaukee. And notably, they were the only team to consistently give Milwaukee trouble in 2025. They won the season series 7-6. Big piece will be injuries as well. Brandon Woodruff sidelined by a lat injury. Cade Horton will be unavailable for the Chicago Cubs. Both team entered a bit shorthanded. This will be a 5-game sprint with familiar foes who have seen each other 13 times already this year. The margin of error shrinks even further. So let's start with pitching. I'll let you take the lead on it. Milwaukee with home field, a lot of rest, and really a clear opening salvo where they go.
So I'm giving the pitching to the Brewers, but again, similar to Yankees, Blue Jays, I'm giving it to them by a hair. If you asked me this a month and a half ago, I would have given it to the Brewers by a lot. But no Brandon Woodruff, a guy with probably the most playoff experience, not probably the most playoff experience in that rotation, and he had looked great since he had came back from a multitude of injuries. See him on the shelf again stinks. So you're shorter handed there than you thought you would be. But the Brewers seem to figure it out pitching wise. Freddie Peralta at the top. I mean, the guy's as solid and consistent as they come. So I love that. And the fact is, yeah, the Brewers lost Woodruff, but as you just mentioned, the Cubs lost Horton, who, even though he's a youngster, was looking like their best pitcher by a lot down the stretch. So pitching, I'm going Brewers by a hair, but I think they have some big question marks. Freddie Peralta is going to have to be Freddie Peralta. Like, he's going to have to be the one answer to all the questions. Jacob Misiorowski, who somehow was named an all-star after 5 appearances, I don't know. He's been a little all over the place the second half, and I'm very curious to see how they use him. Is he going to start a game? Is he going to be a bullpen weapon? I watched him in a game against Cincinnati as a Met fan who was interested in Cincinnati games down the stretch, and he came in a close game and absolutely shit the bed in relief. And as a Met fan, I'm screaming at the TV because this guy's supposed to be electric, and he's just walking dudes, giving up hard contact. So he has not been the same guy that he was when he emerged on the scene. And the Brewers, we brought a lot, not just we, lots of people brought this up when they were going on their crazy run of like, this is cool, but peaking too early. Well, they went 12-12 in September. Very kind of just even keel, nothing special month. Cubs went 14-11, so we're a little better down the stretch. But again, just to stick to pitching here, Cubs bullpen was really good in the Padres series. So again, that almost makes me turn. But I'll give it to the Brewers just because I like Peralta at the top better than anything the Cubs have.
Yeah, I think Freddie Peralta will set a tone in game one. We know he has the velocity. He rides through the zone deep enough to have to shorten Craig Counsell's leverage tree. That's been a conversation across the postseason of figuring out a way to get these bullpens to be managed. And it starts with starting pitching to have length and get these guys out there to give the bullpen a rest when you start matching up. Connolly early last night for the Yankees and the Red Sox series, he pitched well, but it's because there's no trust there. He's a young guy with 5 career starts in a big spot. You didn't want to give him a chance to be upset. I think Freddie Peralta has to be that guy. Quinn Priester's lined up for game 2 and a potential game 5. The Brewers plan is simple. I think it needs to be grounded in strength. They need to win the first dozen outs behind Peralta to keep Priester efficient and then protect the middle with fresh relievers that have had, let's be honest, a full reset week. There's no excuse that everyone can't be available. Go long if you need to. All these games are important. I think Chicago's path is a little bit different here. We saw Jameson Taillon just going through 4 scoreless against San Diego. He had to mix all his pitches located rather than overpowering. The Cubs then had to cover 5 innings with the bullpen plan that you had a logic that you could set your watch to. Righties for the right heavy top of the Padres order, then left leaning for options for the O'Hearn, Sheets, Cronenworth pocket that they had in the lineup, and then a reverse split closer ready for the last pocket if needed. So when Brad Keller lost the zone, as we mentioned, with the bullpen and seeing that happen in real time, Andrew Kittredge was already the answer for that slice of the lineup. I feel like they had a good roadmap that they were pivoting. It wasn't too choreographed, but there was buttons to push that they figured out a way. It was like a pre-planned control that carries this into this 5-game set that I think will loom large here as well. I think that the rotation is murky for Chicago. We mentioned that Cade Horton, but Colin Rea is going to have to soak up early innings in game 1 if they want to keep Taillon on the Wrigley schedule to get him out there, then pick between Matthew Boyd, Shota Imanaga as needed. Matthew Boyd kind of turned back the clock again in the series against San Diego, but we've seen the fatigue on that arm as well. So I don't know if he could be fully trusted to go deep into games like we saw in the early part of the season. I think looking at Milwaukee's lineup, I don't think it much matters who's pitching on the mound, left-handed, right-handed. It doesn't matter. They posted 107 WRC plus against both lefties and righties. They can hit everybody. So it's not about switching and finding the right lineup. These guys are just good hitters. Being that Cade Horton is out, I think it shifts the load to just sequencing some quick hooks, keeping the games in bullpen chessboard while, Craig Counsell's going to have to figure out he's excelled in that. That makes him a good manager. He pushes the right buttons when it needs to be there. I think the off days between games 1 and 2, between games 2 and 3, give these relievers a lot of breathers that they can work consecutive dates. You can give them high workloads. I agree with you, though. The Brewers get the edge here, especially in Peralta start. I think he's a big piece to them. I think he's a better pitcher starting wise than anyone that the Cubs can slot out there. But there'll be a slight Cubs edge across the series that they can repeatedly drag things into the middle innings and start to be the chess game in the bullpen. Because I think Chicago has the edge there. We saw them really go toe for toe with the best bullpen in the league against San Diego. So should be interesting to watch.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Offensively, this I thought was really interesting because, again, you have the first thought that comes to your head, and then you look at some of the statistics and analytics, and sometimes it changes your mind. Originally, I was going to go Cubs here because they can slug more. And in the postseason, you want to get a lot of people on base, but also, when your team needs a big home run, you want to have a bunch of guys that can do it. Cubs do have that. Say Suzuki can hit big home runs. Michael Busch can do it usually towards the bottom of the lineup. PCA, when he's right, can hit it out of the ballpark. On and on and on. They have plenty of guys that can slug. What I've been doing for a lot of playoff prediction is not looking at the stats for the year because it's kind of what have you done for me lately. So I've been looking at second half splits. Okay, so second half, if I look at slugging percentage as a team, Milwaukee was 7th best in the second half slugging. Chicago's all the way down at 15. So Milwaukee outslugged them by a good amount in the second half of the season. And then you go to on-base percentage. Milwaukee is the best on-base percentage team in baseball in the second half. Chicago Cubs are down at 14. So to me, that swayed me right away because I knew the Cubs could hit and they could be annoying. They could do a little bit of everything. And, Christian Yelich can provide some power. Contreras, when he's right, can provide some power as well. Bryce Terang has been just unbelievable this year, taking the next step. So I am going to go Milwaukee here. I know they weren't as on fire down the stretch, like I said before, as they were a couple months ago. But, man, I think they're a motivated team. I think they're a together team. I think we're going to figure this thing out team. They're playing for Uke, which is pretty damn cool here. So give me the Brewers on offense as well.
Yeah, I love the Brewers offense all year. I mentioned before the WRC plus against both left and right-handed pitchers goes a very long way. You don't get the leverage of being able to throw a guy out there that can control them and get a breather for the pitching staff or the bullpen. the Brewers all year pressured mistakes. They passed the baton, which is hard to do in this modern day baseball where strikeouts are so high, and they rarely offer the free pocket that lets an opponent breathe. They are so relentless. And if you watch a lot of Brewers games this year, I think this pairs well with if you get a starting pitcher that gives them long form in the beginning of the series. Chicago's offense, it is interesting as well. You mentioned the recency. I think they came out of the wild card round without the huge totals that you probably would expect if they won that series. But looking at some of the controllables from them were excellent. Seiya Suzuki and Michael Busch were barreling everything. You look at those advanced stats on it. Nico Horner was on time all week. And in game 3, a big piece of this is PCA, Ian Happ and Kyle Tucker finally waking up. I think that is a big piece if Chicago is going to go deep and really take on LA or Philly down the line to eventually get to a World Series. Those guys have to be right. And you look at Michael Busch, you mentioned him as an X factor. So shout out to you last week. His at bat against Robert Suarez was a case study in having control at the plate. So you watch this 4 straight changeups, and there was a long delay that iced the pitcher. One center cut fastball was enough. Busch took it out, did not miss. A big league at bat from a guy who is not your household name, but if you play fantasy baseball or you're watching the Cubs on a daily basis, he's an X factor. He can barrel the ball. He can be a difference maker. I think if that core stays in rhythm, it can lengthen the lineup that, Council can keep chasing matchup leverage rather than chasing runs. And I think this is another chess game here. These guys know each other very, very well. On paper, these offenses are very damn close. Milwaukee steady. Chicago has that hotter middle that you expect to get a little bit more. You look at the names, it just strikes you a little bit more. But I think this will be very interesting. I think that grinding starters is going to be what both lineups do. Essentially, it's even. I might go slight lean to Chicago if Seiya Suzuki, Michael Busch, Nico stay in that barrel window. Inevitably, those barrels have to result in some offense, and they could be dangerous. And let's not forget Kyle Tucker, PCA. This is a lineup that could be volatile for the opposing pitchers.
Absolutely.
But we haven't seen it quite yet.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's kind of a coin flip. Which type of offense do you prefer, and which gut feeling, which one do you think is going to get hot here? So not a wrong answer either way. We'll kind of watch and see here. X factor, I'll be short here because I already mentioned it. It's Jacob Misiorowski. Again, I said before, what are the Brewers going to get from him? A month and a half ago, we were all saying, damn, the Brewers, look, all of a sudden they have a big 3. Peralta, Brandon Woodruff, Jacob Misiorowski. That's going to be rough in the playoffs for any team facing them. And now you're like, all right, Freddie Peralta, Brandon Woodruff is out. And what are we doing with Jacob Misiorowski? What are we going to get from him? Is he going to be the stud that we've seen, or is he going to be the 4.5 ERA guy that we've seen lately? So I think Jacob Misiorowski plays a huge part in this series one way or the other. A big reason they lose it, or a big reason they do come through and win this. I'm fascinated. I cannot wait to see what their plan for Jacob Misiorowski is here.
I think defense will play a part, and that could be my X factor, but I think the real X factor for me will be rest versus rust. I think rest versus rhythm, however you want to phrase it. Milwaukee's bye will be either an asset or a detriment to their postseason success here. I think it's real. Chicago's pen is already in a playoff rhythm. They went toe-to-toe with the best bullpen statistically, analytically in all of Major League Baseball. That has to play a part in confidence. With the off days built in, fatigue will be muted so rhythm can carry some equal weight. I think this is a big piece here, and it's going to loom large in all these series. And there is this, you go in with one thought that if you have the right, and people will say, if Milwaukee loses the series, it's all because they had off. People look at the 07 World Series where the Rockies had all that time off after being so damn hot, and they got blitzkrieged by the Boston Red Sox, Brad's Boston Red Sox over there winning the World Series. And people will point towards, it was because they had all this time off, they ran out of rhythm. I don't know. It's hard to say. You can make the case. You can go in with the aforementioned thought and find a way to support it. I don't know. And the defense will play a part. Control the bullpen as well. You need to throw strikes. It's going to play a big part here. I think the Brewers have a lot to play for. You mentioned the Euchre piece, but there's a lot in this franchise that wants to win so badly. And I'm not saying 2016 was yesterday, but this Cubs team, this fan base has seen a World Series. The Brewers have not. This is a franchise with no World Series. Similar to Mariners, like a lot of parallels with the Mariners and the Brewers here, that they're winning, and all this momentum feels contagious. And I love how the Brewers built this team. Craig Counsell is another case study of this rivalry, like jumping sides and playing for the opposing team. He still sort of looks weird in a Cubs uniform. I don't know if it's just me.
Yeah, I mean, I hated that whole move too, and honestly, I think Brewer fans nowadays are looking at it like, all right, you guys can have them. Like we love what we have here. Listen, all in all, I think this is a complicated series. I just do not trust the Cubs pitching right now. Starting pitching, that is. I do think the bullpen has been a strength, which is shocking after the last couple of years for them. But I just don't trust the starting rotation as it sits there right now, especially with Shota Imanaga just not being the same guy he was last year, giving up tons of home runs, too much middle stuff. So I think the Brewers are going to expose that. And I think they're going to make the Cubs have to figure out some pitching stuff and some bullpen stuff early in games. I think they're going to be all over the base paths, and they're going to be relentless, honestly. I think they're going to be relentless, and I think this goes to the Brewers here.
So I had picked the San Diego Padres to advance to the NLCS, so I didn't have the Brewers getting on this round, and I also don't have them getting on this round. I have the Cubs winning this series in 5.
Okay.
I think Counsell's going to keep these games in the matchup lanes. I think he does really good at that. And the glove will erase 2 rallies. I think they can do a good thing with figuring out 2 pieces together. And I still love the middle of that lineup. I think eventually they have to wake up. Similar to you mentioned, the inevitability of an Aaron Judge. It feels like these names out there are going to get going. Seiya Suzuki, Michael Busch, PCA, Kyle Tucker. I think they're going to swing some of these games in Milwaukee or a chilly night in Wrigley, however it goes. I think this will go the distance. It's going to be a heartbreaker for either team, but I think the Cubs get this done in 5 games.
Wow. And by the way, everyone listening here, if you want the count, I was 1 for 4 in my wild card series predictions, and I believe Steve was 3 for 4. So if you're choosing one of us to listen to, Steve's got the better track record as it sits right now. We'll see here. So far this preview, we have agreed on the Yankees, and now this one, I'm going Brewers, Steve's going Cubs, and that takes us to Mariners, Tigers. All right. Mariners have the countdown on the outside of their stadium with how many wins they need. I love it. I'm sure there's some people that absolutely hate it. You asked us in the chat yesterday what we thought of it, and I think a few of us were like, we really like it. You didn't. I don't know if you said your opinion. Do you like the win countdown, or do you think it's like touching the pot a little bit?
No, I like it. I think it's cool. I think it's awesome to see it visually. It means the city is invested. Seattle's a great sports town. We know that historically the Seahawks and the Seattle Sounders back in the day, the Supersonics, but this Mariners team, people are so desperate to get behind them. We haven't seen them advancing this far since 2001. There's a generation of Mariners fans that has not seen this success. So you have to be able to embrace it while it's here. And you don't want to be a success snob. You don't want to sit here and say you can't celebrate till you win. There's a lot of equal wins to celebrate on the way. I know a lot of people were dunking on the Yankees specifically for the champagne after the wild card round, but every team does it. And I think I used to feel a certain type of way watching all the rounds be celebrated, but maybe it was, I have to give credit to one of the managers that said it. Maybe it was like an AJ Hinch. Someone said it recently that said, baseball is such a marathon, such a war of attrition that you have to celebrate every success you get. And these guys are grinding it out and they're having a good time. So like, nothing's guaranteed. So the Yankees could get eliminated. What's the Reds play 2 extra games? They played essentially 164 games and they celebrated with champagne, but that's something that their fans won't forget. Great American Ballpark didn't get to host a postseason game, but having postseason experience, we mentioned, win or lose, is a big piece to what you do. So I am a fan of it. I think it's cool. And the city's embracing this team. There feels like a kinship with the Mariners and their fan base.
Yeah, I agree with that. All of that, everything you said. If we get into this matchup here, this is probably the one that I feel the strongest about. But you know what actually scares me the most about the Mariners?
The Etsy witch. You don't want to talk about her?
Oh, and we could do probably an episode. Maybe we can get her as a guest.
I wasn't sure if she scared you. I wasn't sure.
We could get her as a guest for spooky season here. That's an interesting thought.
That would be cool.
Anyway, that'd be a bizarre interview. But if the one thing I dislike about the Mariners right now has nothing to do with their roster, they're on the field, their coaching, the managers. It's that everyone's picking them for everything. True. Like almost every bracket I've seen since last week has the Mariners coming out of the AL, and maybe like the very worst I've seen is them like losing in the ALCS, but like most brackets I've seen have them in the World Series. Not everyone has them winning it. I've seen a lot of like Phillies, Mariners, Phillies win. I saw a lot of those. Mine was Mariners, Dodgers, Mariners winning. I think yours were Mariners, Phillies winning, right?
Phillies winning, yep.
Yeah. So it's been a lot of Mariners, and like the juju of it, I just don't love as a sports fan. Like again, even if you're not superstitious and you're just a little stitious like that, it's going to get to you a little bit. I don't know how Mariner fans feel about it. I'm sure different Mariner fans in different ways. But if I get to the actual on the field pitching, it's a slam dunk for the Seattle Mariners here. Now, I'll throw a few things in there. Tarik Skubal, obviously phenomenal, and it can counteract anybody on the other side for any team he's facing. The other thing that takes maybe Seattle down a notch, not all the way, but the Brian Wu stuff is still a little unclear. Okay. Game 1, this was surprising to me. Game 1 is going to George Kirby. Now, Kirby was filthy down the stretch, had a couple just monstrous strikeout starts that we hadn't seen from him before. And I think he's added a pitch, and he's looked like a different guy at times. So I'm not saying he shouldn't get it. I was just surprised that he's the game 1 starter. And Luis Castillo is game 2 against Skubal. I think those are very interesting kind of things there, which means we're thinking Logan Gilbert in 3. Yep. And then is Wu ready? Is he actually going to make a start there if it goes 4? So the question mark of that and the surprising order of things, I'm hoping doesn't backfire. And I'm sure there's some Mariner fans out there that are a little nervous about that. Like a week or 2 ago, I mean, we talked to Brady Farkas not that long ago, and he said absolutely Brian Wu game 1. And I'm sure most people probably thought Wu, Gilbert, Kirby, or maybe Kirby, Gilbert, but interchange, and then Castillo. So to see Kirby, Castillo, and then I'm guessing Gilbert, and we don't know about Wu yet, there's a little bit of like concern, like, I don't know if I love this. Seems like not what we thought, but I still think slam dunk on the pitching side for the Seattle Mariners.
Yeah, I looked at the game too. Castillo nod was like confusing, but when you look further into the splits, it's quite clear why they made the decision, because he has a 2.60 ERA at home and a 4.71 on the road. Okay. So clearly they don't want him pitching in Detroit. They rather be pitching in the friendly confines of T-Mobile. For George Kirby, I think there's a lot of the throwing strike piece that he does, and that's what he does. Calling cards, strikes, and more strikes. Detroit's lineup, they expand out of the zone, and we have not seen them be challenged or be able to get going to be the Detroit Tigers we saw at the beginning of this year, where they were a top postseason caliber offense. You mentioned last week, and you and I were going back and forth about Cleveland and Detroit and comparing their offenses and season to season. And I think it is certainly clear to me that you were on the nose with that of what have you done for me lately? This Detroit offense has not shown it. I think George Kirby's going to force them to expand the zone. I think this matchup plays directly into Seattle's defensive strength. Now the Logan Gilbert piece, waiting for game 3. And if Brian Wu, and we have someone in the chat here say Wu not starting game 1 or 2 means he's not pitching twice either. That is a big piece here. And he also said about Kirby's FIP down the stretch is like 2 runs lower than his ERA. Good point here. And like I said, George Kirby has shown that he could be a guy in carries. And there's an embarrassment of riches for the Mariners. These guys are going out there and they have guys in this depth of their rotation that could be an ace everywhere else. I think if we don't get Brian Wu in game 4, you're going to get a combination of Bryce Miller, Emerson Hancock. And that's going to be a conversation to figure out if that's where you need to go. Either way, I think the biggest shot, similar to what we saw with this Red Sox Yankee series, is when Tarik Skubal's on the mound for the Detroit Tigers, you have to win. And if they don't win, it could be a very, very short series.
Yeah, 100%. And just to expand on what I was talking about with Kirby down the stretch here, it's interesting. If you go to all his September starts, on the 3rd of September, he faced Tampa. He only went 2 innings and gave up 8 runs on 10 hits, and he struck out 1 dude. And then he faced St. Louis a week later at home. He went 4, gave up 3 runs and 7 hits, and he only struck out 2 dudes. This is where things seemingly change. His next start was against the Angels. 6 1/3, 2 runs, 3 hits, 14 strikeouts on 101 pitches. Okay, some people might just say it's the Angels. They strike out a lot. Okay, that's fair argument. Then he goes to Houston, 6 shutout innings on 5 hits, 7 strikeouts. Okay, not 14, but still 7 on 100 pitches. And then against the Dodgers, his last start of the year, he only goes 5, gives up 2 runs on 3 hits, but 10 strikeouts on 85 pitches against the Dodgers. So he's found something in the strikeout department there. We'll see. I mean, I think he had 1 start against Detroit this year. If I scroll quickly and I don't think it was great. But again, this is back in July. 5 innings, 4 runs on 5 hits, 6 strikeouts, 3 walks, which for George Kirby sticks out like a sore thumb. But you're right. I mean, Tarik Skubal day for the Tigers is win day. I just don't like what they have behind him. I mean, Casey Mize can be very good. It's his best season ever. But again, it seems like they still lack some trust. They pulled him super quick in a game which he was looking pretty good against Cleveland, and that's against a light-hitting offense. Jack Flaherty, I mean, listen, guys, we all know the story with Jack Flaherty at this point. Good amount of postseason experience, but he's kind of a Jekyll and Hyde dude. You just don't know what you're going to get. I liked how he looked against Cleveland, but he's kind of hard to figure. So I don't trust Detroit that much, and their bullpen is just mediocre, in my opinion, this year. So other than Skubal, I just don't know where they're going to hang their hat on the pitching side of things. Offensively, I also like the Mariners better. The Detroit offense did not impress me at all against Cleveland. I mean, I like Riley Green as a player. The problem with Riley Green is, he produces lots of runs, lots of RBIs, can hit home runs. Obviously, we saw that this year. He also goes in these modes where he strikes out almost every single at bat. Strikeout rate's way too high. Spencer Torkelson, again, he kind of came back on the scene, a guy that just looked like he was fading into the abyss, had a nice season. I'm still not sitting here thinking he's going to be this X factor, have a great series, and carry the Tigers to a win. Gleyber Torres, same kind of thing, like a guy you can depend on being in the lineup every day, but not a carrier, not an aircraft here. Like he's good, but I don't see the player that is going to put the Tigers over the top on offense. Kerry Carpenter, another guy can hit bombs, but there's just something they lack on offense. And on the Mariners side, I just feel like there's lots of different ways they can win. I love what Josh Naylor has done for this club. Eugenio Suarez obviously was not the guy they thought they were getting, but at any moment could go on a home run barrage. So overall, it's Mariners on offense, not as strong as on the pitching side, but I do give it a little bit to the Mariners here.
Yeah, and we will see game one pitching chaos with Troy Melton, Kiter Montero covering the innings because Skubal's not available to game two. So we're going to have some chaos going on. And the offense, I agree with you. And by the way, it's Dugout Dispatch is giving us, and shout out to Dugout Dispatch. Check out what he brings over there with his baseball blog. All the great coverage are there. Seattle hit 238 home runs, which is only trailing the Yankees and the Dodgers. This is not your mom and dad's Seattle Mariners. This is a length lineup. This is a power lineup. And they're ranked third in MLB with 113 WRC plus. And the park adjustment does matter. They are still plus 10 above Detroit, despite playing in allegedly the run suppressing T-Mobile. So Kyle Riley, we know the story here. He could be the AL MVP. Either way, he hit 60 home runs. That's a single season record for catchers. He's only the 7th player ever to hit 60 home runs in a season. What will he do to author more of that historic nature? He seems to be able to rise to the moment. Julio Rodriguez has turned into a second half surge, almost near an MVP pace. Suarez, 13 home runs after his return to Seattle, 49 total. He has not been the player that they thought they were getting, but still adds some pop. Maybe he gets hot in October. Randy Rosarena, you mentioned Josh Naylor, Jorge Polanco. This is a team that all posted 120 plus WRC plus. So these are guys that can go out there and do it. As far as Detroit's offense, you mentioned the names. Riley Green is the guy. They've been streaky as hell. He's the guy that it all goes around. Maybe you can look at Colt Keith coming back, maybe returning mid-series could be a difference maker. But really, you're asking for a lot from a guy like that. Javi Baez had his best stretch as a Tiger in September, 5 for 11, the wild card. But I mentioned his chase tendencies. He's destined to chase some pitches here from a lot of this nasty pitching staff. Seattle pounds his own, the 3rd highest rate in Major League Baseball. So we know what they can do. I think the edge goes towards the Mariners offensively by a lot. I think the home park savvy tilt is going to, this Detroit lineup at T-Mobile, imagine they played all their home games there, what this lineup would look like, especially how they played the second half of the season here. So the Mariners have a huge edge here. And to show my hand a little bit for my pick, if they don't win that Skubal start, they're being swept.
Yeah, I mean, the whole series could change in game one. Because if the Tigers come out and, let's say, put a bunch of runs up on the board early, it changes everything. If they go get game one and get into the Seattle bullpen early, knock around Kirby, and all of a sudden now the Mariners and Mariners fans are second-guessing the rotation order. You're getting into your bullpen earlier than you wanted to. Tigers get game one, and now you have Skubal game two. All of a sudden, everything feels different. It's just not what I expect to happen, but we know in the playoffs it absolutely could. So I do think game one, especially just the first few innings against Kirby, is of the utmost importance for the Tigers. And I'll just say, to add to the offensive thing, Randy Arozarena, who I know you said his name, but let's not forget, this dude with the bright lights in meaningful games is a different guy, whether it be the WBC or his time with the Rays in the postseason. His career-wise, 336, 38 hits, 11 home runs, 17 RBIs, 23 runs scored in 33 games in the postseason in his career. So you just don't know how a guy like that is going to react, no matter how he was playing for the last few weeks. It's just a different thing for him. So, yeah, I'm Mariners offense, Mariners pitching. X factor for me, again, I'll be quick because I already mentioned him. I think the Kirby Castillo game 1, game 2, it's a surprise. So I think that is a big X factor, because if that goes wrong, it's just going to, the second guessing that we're going to see is going to be so quick and so fierce. But overall, and you just alluded to this, I think it's Mariners in 5. I think the Tigers get the Skubal start. Other than that, I think it's Mariners in 5, even if Skubal finds a way to pitch a second game.
Wow. So you think
Sorry,
Skubal,
4. Mariners
say,
in 4 is where I'm
I was
going.
say, because Skubal, if they get to a game 5, the Skubal has a second start, right? Because
if he'd be in probably short rest, but yeah, I'd assume so. But I'm going Mariners in 4 is what I meant to say.
I agree. I think Mariners in 4 as well, because I think they will get the Skubal win in game 2. Do you buy into any of this stuff, that the Skubal storyline with the pitching in the same city where he played college ball? Is there a lot to this? Will they make something of this? I'm not
sure.
Like, what do you think of it?
I think it's cool. I think it's a cool story. A guy that, I mean, we saw this interview with he and Skeens, I believe, a few weeks back, where they both talked about like the amount of offers they got out of high school, and it was like just a few combined, and what they turned into. Insane. Skeens was at Air Force before he ended up at LSU. Skubal, Seattle University, like not these big baseball schools. So yeah, I mean, returning to Seattle, it's a cool happenstance, I guess. I'm sure we'll see it in the pregame kind of stuff, the build up to the game. But for him, I think it's just going to be another game. Maybe he's pitching in front of some more people than usual, as far as people he knows coming to the ballpark. But overall, I just think it's another kind of footnote to what Skubal is going to be. It's going to be a business trip for him.
Yeah, Skubal does carry Detroit to a winning game 2, but I think Seattle takes the opener with Kirby, as you mentioned. They will lean on Castillo in game 2. Even if he deals Skubal tight, I think he's going to lose that battle, and maybe the Mariners see it that way as well. And I think they're going to close it at Comerica behind Gilbert and the bullpen. So I think the M's will end their 24-year ALCS drought. Detroit will leave knowing their future is bright, but their president ran up against, and dare I say, a juggernaut offensively, because they look every bit thing here. And we have Dugout Dispatch in the chat. He said, J-Rod, quietest 30-30 season ever, potentially. I mean,
one of them.
And I know we joked about it before, but shout out to the Mariners fan, Stephen Blackburn. If you have not followed this story about this social media thing about paying an Etsy witch, a practitioner who sells rituals and spells, he had said, quote, "I have paid an Etsy witch to unfuck the Mariners. Besties help me manifest." And the run has kind of coincided with it, where the Mariners scored 28 runs across 2 games immediately after the incantation. They launched a 10-game winning streak, and they flipped their playoff odds from 23% to a divisional lock. During this stretch, Raleigh homered 9 times down the stretch. Luis Castillo rediscovered his ace form. Brian Wu struck out 29 batters in just 12 innings. And even ESPN Sunday Night Baseball telecast talked about the J.P. Crawford's Grand Slam, and then they talked about the Etsy Witch. So this has some legs here. People are showing up to the ballpark in witch hats. They're bringing candles, broomsticks. There's something to this, and we talk about winning a World Series and having something to believe in, whether it's the grimmest thing. The Mets didn't win a World Series, but you rally behind something. I think there's something about this that can create momentum. And I don't know, baseball is magical that way, man. There's something about baseball that is with the unseen. Talk about baseball gods, and people say it tongue in cheek, but don't mock them. We talked about with Brad earlier. You start mocking the baseball gods by celebrating early, they will humble you greatly.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that at all. But here's the thing. You called Yanks Blue Jays main event earlier. I think we're about to get to the real main event here. Dodgers, Phillies. I mean, it's a hell of a series. So much star power. You got the reigning champs against a team who feels like, listen, I don't think they're going anywhere long-term as far as being a competitor, but they're going to be a little bit of a different team next year, more than likely. It could be just a little bit, or it could be a lot. And that a lot of that depends on if Kyle Schwarber is back or not. But guys like Realmuto, more than likely out the door. And there's other guys there as well that might be leaving and not coming back. So this feels like Phillies have gone backwards. They got to that World Series when it was the year they fired Girardi, right? And Thompson takes over, and they suddenly are in the World Series. They fall short. Next year, NLCS elimination. Next year, NLDS elimination. So they've gone backwards. This year feels like the year they have to do it. And if they don't, man, I don't know what the repercussions are going to be here. But if they're going to do it, this might be the hardest part of the path. Los Angeles Dodgers, who in my mind, they're playing so damn well right now, man. Like other than the bullpen, the offense, the starting pitching, it is the best place they have been all year with all of that combined. The pitching staff is set up. The offense, other than missing Will Smith, which we'll see if he's good enough to come back here. Teoscar Hernandez, who's been very quiet this year, had a great wild card series. I think they're in a very, very good spot. Now, X Factor, Philly having the first two games. That crowd is insane. They had a inter-squad game to make sure they're ready for this as they're kind of sitting and waiting. 30-something thousand fans showed up to watch a scrimmage. So you know the Philadelphia fans are ready to go, and they're going to be on fire here. I don't know, man. Before we get to the breakdowns, your initial just what you're thinking when you see these two line up against each other.
Yeah, I was saying the Yankees and the Jays main event, but I mean, this is a heavyweight fight, and this is good enough to maybe be the NLCS. You can even make the case, if it was possible in a world of worlds, that this could be the World Series, because odds makers believe it to be true. These feel like the most complete teams in all of baseball, that the odds makers have them pegged as the two most likely winners of the World Series. And you can see why. Star power, you got it, check. Pitching, you got it, check. Drama, ballparks, etc. Fan bases that are diametrically different, check, check, check. You have all these things. Ohtani, Betts, Freeman, Harper, Turner's going to be back. Schwarber launching bombs into the night. This is filled with some of the sport's brightest stars. And I think the margins, like all these series, and maybe it's hyperbole at this point, they will be razor thin. And the stage, you mentioned Citizens Bank Park, welcoming in their October baseball back, Red October as they're calling it. The Phillies are going to be loud. The Phillies fans love this team. Mike Schmidt's throwing out the first pitch for Game 1, MVP, 1980 World Series hero, maybe arguably the franchise's greatest player. I think this is a reminder for Philadelphia that this might lift the crowd into, and they're doing the 9 for 9 for 9 deal. If you guys are not familiar, the 9 innings, 9 hot dogs, 9 beers, making the beers affordable. So these Philly fans that don't need any more further liquid courage or motivation will be whipped up into a frenzy. This format itself does loom large. The Phillies earned a bye. They finished 96 and 66, but history does suggest that this might be more of a curse than a blessing for them. So since MLB expanded its postseason back in 2022, 6 of the 12 teams with byes have lost in the division series. So the Phillies, we know they were red hot down the stretch. They played at 106 win pace over their final 2 months. Then they sat idle. They waited for the Dodgers. They swept the Reds, of course. Now we have this tilt here. So we had Dave Dombrowski talking about it. Rob Thompson was asked about it. Philly is a passionate fan base. You mentioned the inter-squad scrimmage that happened. Conversations have been happening on Philadelphia radio. They're not just talking about the Flyers, not talking about the Sixers. They have a lot to talk about with Jalen Hurts and the tush push. They're also talking about the Phillies on the radio, and they're talking about rest versus rust. Is there something to this for the Phillies that have been built on rhythm all year? Similar to the Dodgers, the Phillies are getting right. Trey Turner is going to be back in this lineup. I understand, yeah, they're built and they've been winning without him. Let's not forget how valuable Trey Turner is to this lineup. So this is going to be a big piece to whatever is going on. And I think the winner of this will eventually be representing the National League in the World Series.
Yeah, man, this is a big fight feel, for sure. If we go to the breakdown, it's so interesting. The pitching, I labeled as a toss-up. I like to try to make a decision, kind of hold my feet to the fire. You got to pick one. This is a toss-up, and I'll tell you why. I like the Dodgers starting rotation better right now. I do. Blake Snell, Yamamoto, Shohei looks ready to go. Tyler Glasnow, you haven't even seen him yet. I know Glasnow can kind of be back and forth, like light the world on fire and then look like crap the next time. And his postseason experience, his ERA is not good. He's gotten shelled in the postseason. But having those guys, I mean, that's ridiculous. And Yamamoto looks as good as he ever has. Blake Snell, I trust him a lot in the postseason. We just mentioned in the chat, right? No Wheeler. Christopher Sanchez, fantastic. I don't mind him at the top there. The reason I don't just say Dodgers advantage pitching is because of the bullpens. Phillies bullpen for years has been one of their Achilles heels. This year, they seem to do what they needed to do, whether it be signing David Robertson or going out and trading for Johan Duran. They have kind of solidified the back end of the bullpen. I'm not saying the bullpen's perfect. There's people that are worried about Kerkering having some not so great outings toward the end of the season, guys like that. But overall, you got to like the Phillies bullpen better. The Dodgers bullpen has been an absolute mess. We'll see if Roki Sasaki can be the savior there, or if some other guys like a Blake Treinen can kind of get themselves together here for the postseason. There's some experience there in that Dodgers bullpen, but I'm putting it as a toss-up because of the bullpen. If the bullpens were even, I would say I like the Dodgers rotation a little better as it is set up right now, even though I think the Phillies rotation is very, very good. The one thing, and I haven't heard people talk about this, the one thing that's kind of fascinating, we know Christopher Sanchez gets game 1 against Shohei Ohtani. After that, I'm very interested to see what the Phillies do, because as far as the best pitchers that are performance-wise this year, you would go Sanchez and then Luzardo, Ranger Suarez, or Ranger Suarez, then Luzardo. If you do that, you're putting 3 lefties in a row, which is very unique. Is that a good thing? Do you think maybe those 3 lefties can kind of take away Freddie Freeman and Shohei Ohtani a little bit? If you look at the stats, and I did before it, Freddie's good against a couple of them, not good against one of the others. Shohei's pretty mediocre against all 3 so far. But if you think those 3 lefties can kind of take those guys away, who knows? Or Aaron Nola, who looked a little better in one of his last starts, or a lot better in one of his last starts, but overall had a lot of bad starts this year. Do you trust him enough to kind of mix him in there, say in game 3, and go lefty, Aaron Nola righty, and then save either Ranger Suarez or Luzardo for game 4? I've seen a lot of people saying Luzardo should get game 2. I've said this a few times this year, man. When he's good, he's great. When he is good, he's great. When he's bad, he's really bad. So you have to be prepared for that. To me, I feel like it's got to be Ranger Suarez game 2. I just think he's not as sexy as far as the stuff and all that stuff, but like I trust him more. Maybe that's just me. I trust him more in that spot to know what you're going to get, and for a guy who can kind of figure out and do it, as opposed to Luzardo. But I think the way they structure this is going to be fascinating. Do they go with the 3 lefties in a row, or do they try to break it up?
Yeah, I would be shocked if Luzardo doesn't get game 2. I think to oppose him against Blake Snell would be the answer. And I also think Ranger Suarez would be game 3. You mentioned Aaron Nola for game 4. Figuring it out from there, if you can get to that point, figure it out. But we know Ohtani versus Chris Sanchez is going to be game 1. And we're contractually obligated by Major League Baseball covering them, that we have to mention that this is the long-awaited postseason pitching debut for Shohei Ohtani. And all joking aside, he's been fantastic down the stretch. 2.87 ERA, a 1.90 FIP, a strikeout to walk rate of nearly 7-1 across 14 starts. He has been absolutely apples to apples comparison. He no-hit the Phillies for 5 innings in mid-September. So he showed just how unhittable he can be when that fastball splitter combo is knocking down all these hitters. The question isn't his stuff. It's really how deep he can go. His season high pitch count is 91 right now. Maybe they push him. He's so valuable on offense, you don't want to risk it. So there's that slippery slope you find yourself on. We watched the Garrett Crochets, the Cam Schlittler. They are pushed beyond 100 pitches. I'd be shocked if he push Ohtani well past that mark, even if it is an arbitrary mark that I don't really oblige to. But I don't know. Citizens Bank is not exactly the friendliest environment for an October debut. We'll see how he does fare. But Chris Sanchez, to me, does counter with a completely different story. I mean, he has been, as advertised, all-star snub. Let's not forget that, motivated by that. This is a guy who potentially could have started for the National League if it wasn't for the inhumane Paul Skeens going out there and just being an absolute monster.
Yeah, and I just want to point out, I think that's a good point you make about, all right, your first postseason pitching experiences in Philly. I think that's an interesting point. I have this very vivid memory of Shohei as an Angel making his first start at Yankee Stadium, and he just looked like he was off.
Yeah.
he looked off. So to me, I think this is a different Shohei Ohtani, but I do wonder a little bit if Philly's going to be able to kind of get under his skin a little bit.
So as far as the apples to apples, I mentioned Shohei against the Phillies in September. You want to talk about how Chris Sanchez did against the Dodgers. In 2 starts, he allowed 8 runs and 4 home runs in 14 innings. So there's an apples to apples comparison that the Dodgers can hit Chris Sanchez as well. So game 2, potentially, you mentioned Blake Snell being set to go, and these two teams met on September 16th. Blake Snell had the 7 scoreless innings, 12 strikeouts. It looked like he was rounding into Blake Snell that we know that faced these exact same Dodgers in the World Series a few years ago. Luzardo, his changeup is going to be key to neutralizing the big hitters in the lineup for the Dodgers. He is a guy that can, when he's right, he's not Wheeler, but he is excellent. We talk about Wheeler not being healthy. He had a 2.60 ERA over the final month. Jesus Luzardo, if he's your number 2, it's not such a bad number 2 to have. And that's the gratitude that the Phillies have to look at their front office for putting together a lot of depth in this rotation to withstand Wheeler going down an injury. Because yes, he's missed, but there's a lot of guys that can pick up the slack.
Yes, I agree. But dude, I mean, on the Dodgers side, you got Yamamoto game 3. Like, what a luxury. These guys are in such a good spot. And again, if you're Philly, you just have to figure out a way to not let these guys go too deep and just see if that Dodger bullpen can fix the ship here. Like, make them have some big moment. Keep it close enough where the Dodger bullpen, it can't be like, oh, they gave up 5 runs to the bullpen, but they still won by a lot because the cushion was so big. Keep it close and see if this Dodger bullpen can figure it out. I mean, Roki Sasaki can't pitch. I mean, I don't think he's going to pitch like 3 innings out of the bullpen. That would be pretty surprising, like in a row. So who can you get to there? I think it's fascinating in that department. And I will say, as far as the Phillies, we've seen their bats go quiet in October a few times. I mean, as a Met fan, I reveled in their bats going quiet against the Mets last year in the division series, this very series. They just were not hitting. They could not string hits together. There is something that line, but as good as the names sound, Bryce Harper, Realmuto, like these veterans, Kyle Schwarber has been unbelievably clutch all year. I mean, Castellanos, but like they're going to have to string hits together against these guys, and it's not an easy rotation to do it against. I will be looking at that early. If their bats are quiet throughout game 1, I think they're going to start holding that bat a little tighter, because this has happened to them before, where the bats have just gone quiet. Pitching has not been that bad, and the bats just went too quiet. So something to look for, no doubt about it. I will say, pitching-wise, I already said it's a toss-up like the Dodgers rotation, but I like the Phillies bullpen way better. My offensively, I give it to the Dodgers for what I just said, man. Been there, done that. They know how to break out in the postseason. If it's not this guy, it's this guy. It just doesn't seem like one guy's struggle forces someone else to struggle. Someone else picks it up. Whereas the Phillies, sometimes I feel like the struggle, I don't know, it seems to spread to the other parts of the team. So I take the Dodgers offense all day. My X factor here, Jesus Luzardo for the Phillies, already talked about it. If he's going to be put in that game 2 spot against a Blake Snell with all that experience for Snell, that's a huge spot. For the Dodgers, Teoscar Hernandez. We just talked about all the lefty starters that might be tougher on a Shohei Ohtani, on a Freddie Freeman. Teoscar just had that great series in the wild card. He wasn't very good all regular season as far as his standards. If he can carry that over and be the big right-handed bat that they need, I think he could be a huge X factor for the Dodgers.
So we have Dugout Dispatch in the chat saying that we did call Roki being the answer, and you look right as velo is way up and makes the splitter even more dangerous. We talk about the series against the wild card, and yes, they played the Reds, and it's a laughable series. And you throw away the stats because it's just like the Reds are not a playoff team. But I think there's a lot to take away from the series. Emmett Sheehan and Alex Vesia combined for 41 pitches to get 3 outs in game 2, and you're not facing the Reds offense. Obviously, bright spot being Roki Sasaki. Dugout Dispatch mentioned it. You talked about it as well. He came in firing 101, striking out 2 in a perfect ninth. If he becomes a weapon, it looks completely different in their bullpen. He, I think, could be the difference maker to have them go back-to-back and potentially have a dynasty on our hands. That's what we're looking at. That's what's at stake for the Los Angeles Dodgers. As far as offense, they're an offensive machine. We talked about it with the Mariners being really good this year, the Yankees, of course. They're still one of the more premier offenses, 5th in runs scored, second in home runs, fifth in WRC plus. It's an offense that goes and runs with it. They punish mistakes and they rarely rely on just one bat. You mentioned before, sometimes October thaws out. Kike Hernandez figures it. Like, you get these unlikely heroes for them as well. Betts to me is the engine. In the wild card game, he went 4 for 5, 3 doubles. Maybe he gets going. Freeman doing his usual thing, 305 average, a 399 OBP, 6.5 WAR. Looking at the advanced stats. Ohtani pitching duties while still hitting 41 home runs with a 610 slugging percentage. All the offensive pieces, you know. Philly, and we got Dugout Dispatch in here asking who else scares us other than the two lefties, Harper and Schwarber. Trey's been good, but he hasn't been a power guy this year. The regular season numbers for the Phillies: 778 runs scored, that's 7th in the league. 212 home runs, that's 7th in the league. 109 WRC plus, 8th in the league. Puts them right behind LA in most of those categories. They hit 258 as a team overall, 2nd in the majors, and their 431 slugging percentage is ranked top 5. This offense goes with Schwarber. 42 home runs. This is a guy that hits home runs at a clip year after year. We watched what he did this year. He could be the MVP if it's not for all the stuff we saw with Shohei doing on both sides of the ball. Trey Turner is a guy who steals, makes them out there. Harper, I mean, he has slumped in September. He's not the same player we saw in the beginning of the year, but I do believe his October resume plays a part here. 15 home runs. His career postseason OPS is well above 1,000. And I think Harrison Bader, who could play a part, I think it could have a fresh spark. And like, that's a guy who could be a difference maker. That's the type of name you see who could be a big part of this offense. And like, can't you see him getting a walk-off hit in Philly, being drenched in water on the way out? Come on.
Let me just say something here. I'm going to put my record on the line here. There is no way Harrison Bader does what he did for the last month or two for the Phillies in the postseason here. I just don't see it. I'm hearing like Philadelphia fans already say, like, we got to re-sign Harrison Bader. Like, really? Come on now. I think he had a nice little streak here for the Philadelphia Phillies coming over as a trade acquisition. Man, I think he could get exposed by the Dodgers pitching staff, quite frankly. I mean, I guess late in the game you're facing that shaky pen, maybe. But I'm going to say Harrison Bader is not an X factor here. But you're right about the Bryce Harper stuff in the postseason. Like, this is another guy, bright lights, just turns it on. But you mentioned Kike Hernandez too. I was doing this research the other day of like current postseason players and the most postseason experience. I put it on X. You have all these like household names like Alex Bregman, Mookie Betts, George Springer, Trey Turner. There, as far as experience goes, Cody Bellinger, Freddie Freeman, and they're at number 8, Kike Hernandez. And it's a good line. It's a great line. 278, 353, 522 triple slash line in 230 at bats, 15 home runs, 35 RBIs. This is who the Dodgers are, man. If it's not Shohei, it's Will Smith. If it's not Will Smith, it's Teoscar Hernandez. If it's none of the studs, suddenly Andy Pages and Kike Hernandez are having huge moments. There's a momentum to the Dodgers right now, a swagger that I didn't feel like they had mid-season. And honestly, I'm feeling it for the Yankees too now. And I did not all season until that last game 3 against the Red Sox, where all of a sudden there was no part of me all year that thought we were going to have a World Series rematch this year. And there's a small part of me now, even though it's not what I predicted a week ago. Like, I could see it now because of the momentum and the stars and guys starting to play really well. And it just seems to be coming together. The Dodgers, man, like I said, if it's not one guy, it's someone else. Whereas I don't feel that way for the Phillies. Harrison Bader is not going to replace Schwarber and Harper struggling in the series. That's just how I see it. Whereas like Kike Hernandez and Andy Pages could. Like that's just the world I feel like we live in with the Dodgers.
So for these teams being evenly matched, you have to dig into weird different stat categories and dive deep into Baseball Savant, Fangraphs, etc. I dug deep before this episode into plate discipline, and the Phillies right now, that's where they excel. So I'm going to kind of lay it out for you guys with the Dodgers and the Phillies, how they compare with plate discipline and why this will play a huge part of the series. And I look at this Phillies lineup. They didn't just muscle their way to the top of the NL. Yes, 56 home runs for Schwarber. They hit home runs at the Big Pop. Citizens Bank Park does yield a lot of home runs, but they also outthought pitchers. Philly finished the season number 1 in plate discipline metrics across all the boards. Not because they were passive. They were aggressive, but it was selective. They were efficient, forcing pitchers into uncomfortable zones. So looking at some of these stats, percentage numbers, I'm going to throw a lot of numbers at you, and they're all true. Philly swung at nearly half the pitches they saw, 48.7%, which is a top 5 rate. their 68.8% Z swing rate and 86.3% contact rate on those strikes made them lethal when pitchers tried to steal first pitch strikes. Once a fastball caught too much plate, it was usually punished. As far as contact in the zone, no team matched their ability to turn strikes into playable contact. So the Phillies converted 76.5% of their overall swings into contact, which is one of the highest marks in all of baseball. That kept the strikeouts manageable and turned more at-bats into competitive plate appearances. Finishing with the chasing, they did chase more than most, 30.3% O swing, higher than average, but it was by design. Because pitchers had to attack, Phillies hitters took the chances that expanded, while Harper and Schwarber chased. It was often hittable breaking balls and damage counts rather than flying at waste pitches. Contrastly, the Dodgers did it completely different. LA finished middle of the pack at number 20 in plate discipline. Their 46.3% overall swing rate was among the most conservative of all baseball, and that patience really generated deep counts. It also came with some drawbacks: lower aggression in the zone, disciplined chases, and tempo differences. So I think Philly's quicker paces, and you can dig into these numbers, 19.1 seconds per pitch reflected an attack first mentality, and LA's slower pace, 18.6, showed their preference for grinding plate appearances. So looking at all these and diving into this, Philly's discipline's about doing damage, putting the ball in play with authority when the strikes arrives. The Dodgers are paper cutting you to death. You mentioned all the different players playing a part. Yes, they can do the power. Ohtani's going to blast it when he has a chance. They draw things out. They work walks. They build pitch counts. They trust the stars to eventually cash in. And I think these are two completely different approaches that will play out. And yes, watching as a novice baseball fan, you may be like, these are just two great lineups with great stars, but they do things very, very differently. It's honestly a philosophical divide that we're seeing here that's going to decide this series. If Philly keeps hammering early strikes, Ohtani and Snell won't get away with many strikes, or mistakes, I should say. And if the Dodgers patient cracks Sanchez or Luzardo into deep pitch counts by the fourth inning, Philly's bullpen is going to be tested. And we know Philly has the upper hand right now on paper, as we saw second half of the season with the bullpen. But that could switch. If you start taxing them early in this series, you could see it flip on its head. And we watched what the Cubs did in San Diego. We thought that the bullpen was a strength for the Padres. And yes, they had great showings, but the Cubs matched them note for note, foot for foot. And no one would have accepted that in the preseason, in the preview of the series, right? Like, we would have said the Padres have going away the better bullpen. So we could have this conversation after the series of saying that plate discipline played a part.
Yeah, I think plate discipline's huge. I remember Bryce Harper last year, when they were either on the brink of elimination against the Mets or after they lost, was speaking about how they're getting too impatient at the plate. And the Mets last year, if you remember, one of the things about that team was they walked a lot of dudes. And Bryce was basically saying is they're not being patient enough and they're swinging out of the zone too much and helping these guys out. Whereas that selective aggression you're talking about, it seems like something they have made a conscious effort to do this year. And that obviously can get a good lineup to be great. The thing is, again, I just feel like it's a deeper lineup 1 through 9 for the Dodgers of different guys that been there, done that, the clutch hits, whereas the Phillies, I'm not saying no one's clutch there. I mean, we've seen Schwarber, we've seen Harper, but I just feel like the Dodgers have done it more. I mean, a clear example, I don't even think we've mentioned Mookie Betts' name, the guy who has the most World Series of current.
I mentioned 4 for 5. He's crushing.
All right, there you go. All right, I didn't mention Mookie Betts' name. That's my fault then. Yeah, he finally looks like himself. Where do you go against these guys? And just to go back, the Harrison Bader stuff, Dugout Dispatch in the chat mentioned they didn't have a big postseason for the Yankees. He hit it on the head. So as a playoff performer, Bader has a batting average of 230, 5 home runs, 9 RBIs, 14 runs scored in 31 games. It's basically all for the Yankees in 2022. I'm guessing you remember this, Steve.
Yeah,
pretty fondly. Bader in 2022 in 9 games in the Yankees playoffs went 10 for 30 with 5 home runs, 6 RBIs, 8 runs. That's insanity. So, I mean, who knows? Maybe I look like an idiot and Bader goes on one of those runs for the Phillies. But overall, don't get me wrong, man. I think the Phillies are a very good team. I just trust the Dodgers more, and I'm in love with their starting pitching, to be honest. I think the Dodgers take it. And the logical thing would be saying 5 games. To me, if it goes to a game 5 and you're playing in Philly, that's a tough place. I feel like I'm going to go Dodgers 4 here and say they split in Philly and they take 2 in LA.
Wow. I mean, definitely something to discuss further about the Harrison Bader piece. for me, two things can be true. You could be right about Harrison Bader not being the player he was in the second half, and he could still have big moments in this series or further in the playoffs down the line, because we've seen unlikely heroes, Kike Hernandez being one of them. I mean, Kike Hernandez made a living in the postseason, and then, of course, got paid by the Boston Red Sox, got DFA'd, and then winds up back in Los Angeles again, because all he does is show up in October. And some players just play when the lights are bright, and they can't do it across 162, but during the short stretch of October, they're able to put it together. And maybe Harrison Bader is that player. I think it's more likely than not we're going to see the big boppers play a big piece of this. The Schwarbers of the world, the Ohtanis. We're definitely going to see all the different shell game with the bullpen. I think the Roki Sasaki thing we touched on before will play a huge part. Tyler Glass now is going to play a big part of this as well, how you piece it together down the line and start Dave Roberts manufacturing some stability at the back end, because let's be honest, I mean, this has been anything but reliable all year. We know that the bullpen has been a problem. It's still continued to be a problem despite sweeping the Reds. It was not something that they leaned on feeling good about. I'm sure Dodger fans are happy they won the series, but it did not give you comfortability. I know people are looking at the Roki thing. Yes, he can channel some of his electric stuff in shorter bursts, but if I'm a Dodger fan, I'm concerned about this bullpen. And yes, the Yamamoto, and he could be the Cy Young if not for Skeens. If you keep saying that, like Skeens is inhumane, Tarik Skubal, but like Yamamoto has pitched well enough to win a Cy Young any other year. It just he happens to be living in the generation that Paul Skeens happens to occupy. This is certainly going to be interesting. I mean, for Philadelphia, I think Bryce Harper is going to be very much a big factor for them as well. If the September version of him shows up and he's not the guy we know and love, or some of us love, I should say, the Phillies offense risks being too Schwarber dependent. But if Harper's the guy and you have that 1-2 punch that at any point the lineup turns around and it's Schwarber and Harper being there waiting for you, I think this guy could be a difference maker. I mean, he has 15 career postseason home runs. He has a knack for moments that echo. I mean, we know the home runs he's hitting big moments. Philadelphia can beat anyone. I think they can beat the Dodgers, and I think they will. I think Phillies in 5. I think it's going to be a classic series. Phillies balance. I think the bullpen trust, and we didn't really even talk about the Phillies bullpen because I think it's become sort of just an accepted thing that a lot of bullpens outside of San Diego, who's now sitting watching at home, I don't think there's a bullpen better in the National League than the Phillies. So you're looking at the strength here.
Yeah.
I think this will go the distance. They're going to trade some blows. There'll be some big moments. Harrison Bader probably having one of them. And I think one mistake could decide the outcome. The ceiling of the Dodgers rotation, like you were saying before, is much higher. But I think the bullpen edge, and then also, let's not forget, home field advantage, Citizens Bank Park, that atmosphere can tilt it in that direction. I like the Phillies in 5, and I think the Phillies will represent the National League in the World Series. Even before San Diego got eliminated, I had them going there. I think Philly will close out this window of competitive nature with this core with a World Series victory, and we'll talk about that as we get further and further along.
All right, I like it. Now, here's the interesting thing. I only went 1 for 4 in my wild card round picks, but my picks to advance to the championship series remain the same, even though some of my winner picks got eliminated. So your
bracket was not busted. There you go.
Not completely busted here for going to March Madness territory. In the NL, I had Brewers, Dodgers, NLCS. As you've heard tonight, I am sticking with that prediction. And in the AL, I had Mariners. Did I have Mariners, Yankees? Or actually, maybe I might have to check myself here.
I'll pull it up right now while you're talking.
I may have had Mariners, Jays. So I might be partially wrong here, but either way, I know I have the Mariners going there too.
Mariners, Jays, and you have the Mariners against the World Series against the Dodgers. Yeah.
All right. So I'm making one change, even though it wasn't based on an elimination that I got wrong. All right. I am now switching my pick from the Blue Jays going to the ALCS to the Yankees. And again, a lot of that's momentum based from what I watched last night. So that's my final 4 there. And, we'll talk more about it as we move on here.
Yeah. And I think looking at momentum, it's a big thing. And a lot of conversation will continue to circle on rest versus rust, and people will have the confirmation bias of whatever happens will be the de facto reason why their team lost. And if the Phillies do lose this series, I don't think it's because they lost rhythm. I just think these are 2 heavyweight teams, 2 World Series caliber teams that the Dodgers, they warmed up. It might as well have been an inter-squad match against the Cincinnati Reds. It didn't matter. Like, they were going to beat the Reds. So much had to break right for the Reds to even be competitive in the series, and they didn't. The Dodgers gave them opportunities to get back in the game with the bullpen. This will be a real test for the defending champions, and they have to wake up and be able to come into enemy territory against these Phillies fans that are going to be hot. The 9 for 9 for 9 deal is going to be there. Mike Schmidt throwing out the first pitch. Philly will be electric. Red October will be getting going. One of the hardest places to play. And we'll see. I mean, if they hit Shohei Ohtani in the first inning and you see a bomb get launched, it could be hectic to play. And Shohei, do we have reason to doubt him? You know what I mean? Shohei has shown no matter what he touches turns to gold.
I don't know, man.
I've been one of the doubters for Shohei. You know what I mean? Like they shove him down your throat. He is the Roman Reigns adjacent, but he's not to be denied. Like what we see offensively and what we see from the pitching side, this is a once in a generation player. And we're lucky enough to watch him do this. So I'm so excited to see him get a test against a legitimate lineup like Philly firing at all cylinders. It's Citizens Bank Park. It's what you sign up for, man. This is why you're a baseball fan.
Dude, that tomorrow night. That is must-see TV. That Philly crowd revved up, waving all the flags, the towels in that first inning, and Shohei on the mound. Like that is must-see TV. Like the coolest pitching matchup for Shohei since he faced Trout in the ninth of the WBC to close it out. Like it's going to be electric, similar to that in a completely different place. Let's just say that. So, get your popcorn ready. It's going to be fun tomorrow and fun for the next week or so.
Yeah, right now, if you look at the odds, the Dodgers are favored slightly at a -125 and the Phillies that are +105. CBS, if you look at their experts, quote unquote, I'm putting experts in air quotes, they're mostly leaning towards Philly, but who knows? You have to play these games, and that's why we do play the games. And as much as we talked about the wild card round being a crapshoot with the 3-game series, traditionally, this 5-game set is a crapshoot as well. Losing game 1's not a death knell, but there is a lot of momentum that can be switched going down. I think a lot of the pressure is on the team with home field advantage. Like we talked about the Jays, like we talked about with the M's. If you lose one of 2 games, you lose 2 games at home, and then you go into a raucous environment down 0-2. That could be very, very challenging that you have to somehow survive. So I think for the Phillies, like all these home teams, go out and make a statement. So that the pressure's on the home team for sure.
Yeah, because it's just like that. You snap your fingers and lose your home field advantage very, very quickly if you lose that first game. So, yeah, lots on the line. Still a short series. Best of 3, best of 5. They're still both very short series. So a lot on the line from the get-go tomorrow night. And again, I mean, it could be as simple as not wanting to get into your bullpen too deep in the first game. So we'll see. Lots of fun to be had.
We have about 120 people here. I see in the little eyeball on our live stream. We appreciate you guys joining us. And if you're not following us on Instagram or on Twitter, please do so at Tablesetters Pod. If you enjoy what you're listening to right now, enjoy baseball and enjoy positive, meaningful, in-depth conversation about the game we all love, give us a follow, give us a chance. If you can, leave a 5-star review for us on any of the platforms you listen to us on. Spotify and Apple goes a really long way. Subscribe to us on YouTube as well. If you're not checking us out in video form, here we are with our beautiful faces talking about baseball. Devin posts clips on Instagram, on Twitter, just trying to grow the community. In the offseason, as we mentioned before, we will be posting guest-centric episodes. We have some evergreen content out there as well from the past guests. We've had a lot of different guests. Lucky enough to really interact with a lot of the great featured people around baseball covering different teams. Your favorite team, probably. There's not many teams we haven't covered, right, Devin?
Yeah, we've done our best over the time we've been on here to get as many different team-centric things. I think we've come close to checking all 30 boxes, and I've even come back around a couple times for certain ones, and we'll continue that path. Just a little bit of breaking news during the show, and this was kind of expected, but just a quick mention. Skip Schumacher named the next manager of the Texas Rangers. It was expected over the last couple of days as a guy that was already in the organization as, I believe, some kind of advisor or something like that. So former NL manager of the year for the Marlins seemed like a star on the path to manager stardom, and suddenly he wasn't there anymore. I think it's a nice hire for Texas, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that in the offseason too.
Yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of these teams that had seasons that were disappointing, and I think the Rangers, despite having the year in between their World Series championship, there is a lot to be disappointed about if you're a Rangers fan. Like, you have the acquisitions of from the offseason, building on a team offensively that was supposed to be special. What we saw maybe more was a blip on the radar when they won that World Series a couple years ago against the Diamondbacks. Maybe that was more the outlier than the team that they actually are. And there's some internal dialogue that needs to happen between the team of maybe they need a new voice. Skip Schumacher, certainly a guy that you mentioned before, took an underachieving Marlins team to be competitive. and maybe he can be the voice they need. And as far as these other managers go, and we will discuss the offseason, sometimes all you need is a different voice. And doesn't mean that the manager is a bad manager. I think that's a lot of what people are looking for, to place blame on why. And I'm not saying it was Bochy's fault at all. Like, you know what I mean? Like, Bochy is still a Hall of Fame manager, in my opinion. It's just a matter of getting a new voice in the room. I mean, hell, Joe Torre was asked to leave by the Yankees. You know what I mean? Like, so sometimes you just lose sight about what is working, what's not, and you need to move on.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you might be too comfortable. Someone needs to shake it up or have a different perspective. I mean, the Mets also let go of a bunch of assistant coaches today.
Yeah, what's your thought on that? Because I saw that going through, and I know that there's like a scapegoat nature to it, that you want to point fingers and say it was your fault that this happened.
Well, some of those dudes, a friend of mine was like, how do all these coaches get fired, but Mendoza keeps his job? Some of those guys predated Mendoza. Like, they were there before Mendoza was hired under Showalter. So again, I think it's partly scapegoat. Like, somebody's got to take some blame here. We can't get rid of all the players. No one's firing David Stearns. David Stearns doesn't want to fire Mendoza. So we're going to let some guys go and bring in a different perspective. I mean, a lot of Mets fans were calling for Chavez to lose his job for a while with how good the offense can be and how inconsistent it was at times. Hefner, I mean, coming into the season was like a managerial star because he was taking some stuff and molding it into something way better than it should be. And I still think he's a very good pitching coach, but it didn't work this year. I mean, the pitching was really bad. It's probably the biggest reason they're at home. So I'm fine with it. I'm not sitting here saying like, yeah, those guys all deserve to lose their jobs and everyone that comes in is going to do better. I think it comes down to the players, but I don't mind it. I feel like something had to be done here.
And last year we had Keith Radd on the build-up to the Mets season talking about what they were going to do. I would love to get Keith Radd back on here. He did a fantastic job calling the Mets play-by-play on their radio broadcast associate. So I would love to see just a conversation about the Mets in full. And I think as time passes for Mets fans, there's a lot of reactionary pieces being put out there, people that are passionate, rightfully so. The Mets broke a lot of fans' hearts this year. As time passes, there'll be more of an objective conversation. I feel like you've been more even-keeled all year because it was a slow burn. But I think as even time goes on, there'll be more of a clearer picture of what this team should do. And lucky enough, you're not making the reactionary moves in the moment. Because I think a lot of people, yes, you fired a lot of the coaching staff, but there's something to be said about letting this settle for a second and letting the pieces fall where they might and trusting the process. If you trust David Stearns and you trust Mendoza and you trust Steve Cohen, you have to trust this and see it through. And yes, it did suck and it was awful what happened, but you have to trust where they are and not blow it up just because you're upset at them in the moment. You just have to see it through.
Anyone out there saying they're going to blow it up and trade Lindor and all that stuff is a idiot. Like, it's out there and it's stupid. In all, disappointing season, but the Mets are still in a good spot with like some very, very foundational offensive players that anyone would be lucky to have, and some really young, great pitching that you can mold into very nice set of pitchers over the years, and you have money to boot. So like, they're not in the worst spot in the world. It just felt like that for a couple days because of the result of this season. But overall, they have some huge decisions to make. It's going to be a winding road. I can't wait to see what they do, although there's a little fear in what's going to happen. But, there's a couple of our own guys that you got to make decisions on, Alonso, Edwin Diaz. And then you're going to have to bring in some pieces. You might have to be creative the way you do it, but you cannot just sit on your hands and bring the same exact team back.
So we will not have the luxury of having any more breaks that will allow us a night off to have this, because as soon as if we go the distance on these DSs, it will be Friday, October 10th, which is game 5 for the Tigers and the Mariners, and also the Yankees and the Blue Jays. We're right into the DS on the Saturday. And then on Sunday is right where the ALCS kicks off. So if we were to preview the championship series, we have to find somewhere else to go. I would love to go live again. Maybe we can do something like this again. We have a lot of people in the chat. I love the discourse live and in person with us. We appreciate everyone that hopped in the chat. But we have to figure out a way, because last year we didn't really, and I went back in the archives looking at how we handled the postseason. We did our normal scheduled episodes and we just talked about the games as they happened, which was a fun output as well. But I do enjoy this because we're able to reflect on the round that was before and then reflect on the round that will be. So we have to find a time that we're going to come live to you. I would love to give everybody an episode sometime early next week, somewhere down the line, where we can have a conversation just about what's going on in the moment. I think there'll be a lot of different matchups. We will have some of these games done and things momentum wise are moving in a different direction. So stay tuned. All that being said, for where we're going to be catching us next, we're going to try our best to drop a few episodes on the in-between to keep you guys up to date on everything going on around Major League Baseball.
Yeah, I mean, my guess would be maybe we lay it out with like a midweek episode next week, just regularly record, no live, and then once the DS is over, maybe we can do another one of these bad boys and get on live and release it as well, as we always do.
For sure, and that would be somewhere down the line. If the series goes short, we potentially could do a Friday or Saturday live episode, but we may have one series going on as we continue to preview things, but that is the magic that is baseball. But again, we do appreciate you guys hopping in the chat. If you weren't in the chat, and that's okay, just listening, we appreciate that as well. To Brad, to Dugout Dispatch. Again, shout out to Dugout Dispatch. Check out what he does over there, supporting baseball and passing on the word of everything we do over here. Devin, any final words as we get ready for this division series take hold? 2:08 Eastern time with the Cubs and the Brewers.
No, man, just everybody out there, thanks for listening. I know this is a longer episode. I think when we're on live, it tends to be like that. We feel like we want to stay on here for a little while, get as many people a chance to get in here and watch us live. But if you're listening, thank you. Appreciate that very much. And enjoy baseball. Keep on watching.
Yeah, enjoy the games tomorrow, guys. We'll be back later this week talking all things Major League Baseball and all the magic that is October. But until that time, we will talk to you after a while.